Meeting is called to order. Should we say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes.
Let's stand, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So probably just for reference, if Laura could just take roll call, because we do have a few people out.
Okay.
Member Ciaciola?
Yes.
Member Four? Member Lamb?
Here.
Member Roscoe? Absent. Member Pretty?
I'm here.
Member Quilty?
Here.
And President Dami is absent.
All right. So take it away, Bob.
I'm on?
You're on.
Alrighty. Well, great to be back here. I guess half the group is not feeling great, but anyway, it was a pleasure driving up from Santa Rosa. Since we met last, which was, I guess the early fall, been all around the state, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but I've been to places like Fallbrook and Temecula's been in the news quite a bit. I don't know if you know if you've been reading about Temecula in the CSBA documents, but at any rate, it's great to be here. I think today is really a time to focus on how can the board be strategic and be systems thinkers. And so the board has, all of you in my interviews with you in the fall are interested in having the board really understand what it's supposed to do and then do it well. And so that's my task as I see it, is to spend some time kind of reviewing some of the things we talked about before. I know some of you aren't feeling great, so we'll move the evening along. Having fewer people certainly will probably, we won't have quite many people talking and sharing and stuff. So I'll do my best to keep us on track and make it really good use of time. And then if people have to leave and others want to stick around, and you can ask me about Temecula, I'd be happy to do that. So let's focus the time we can as well as possible, and then we'll adjourn, and for those that aren't feeling good can leave, and for those that are feeling okay and want to stick around a little longer, I'm fine with that. So there is pizza, and so I'd say we'll just do a kind of an intro activity, and then get some pizza, and then we'll keep going. So what I thought we'd do tonight is start with thinking of a time in your life where you considered it kind of a fork in the road. Yogi Berra said, if you see a fork in the road, take it. But I think, we've all been in places where it was either the decision we made or somebody we knew really well that influenced our lives in some way. What for you is kind of a fork in the road, could go all the way back to your youth or high school or college. My example is that Shirley and I got married leaving the Midwest to go to California. We knew we were going to one coast or the other. I started in the seminary in San Anselmo, just north of San Francisco, and I was looking for a part-time job and went to the business office, and there was a little card that says Kentfield School District, after-school sports coach and a crossing guard. And I thought, well, I've coached kids for the last 10 years, and I think I can handle being a crossing guard. So I applied, got the job. And it turned out that I ended up student teaching there, and then I was a teacher, grades K-6, and then I was a principal and assistant superintendent for business, and superintendent there for 29 years. So that was a pretty important moment. I still remember the bulletin board that card was on when I took it off, and rode my bike a mile down to the Kentfield School District. So pretty big moment in time. And if I hadn't gone to that particular job, I may not have ended up spending 40 years in the Kentfield School District. So fork in the road for sure. Who's got one they want to share?
I'll share.
Okay.
Mine is probably when my husband and I lived in Sunnyvale, the Bay Area. We loved it. It was great. But then when we wanted to have children, I was working in a bank, and I worked in banking. We decided to move back to Yuba City. My husband was an engineer with Caltrans, so they moved him and he transferred. And then I quit my job and I became a stay-at-home mom. So quitting, it's kind of scary. You work and you have a salary, you wanna do that, but I really wanted to be there for my children, so I quit my job, we moved back here, which we could afford to do that then. You can't do that in the Bay Area.
Right.
And then I just stayed home, raised my kids until they got into school, and once they got into elementary school, then I started volunteering at the school, and then I started to be a teacher's aide, and then when they were in school full-time, started working full-time at the high school that opened, and I'm still in the schools.
There you go.
So, I mean, I took a completely different road than what I was going to do. And, you know, you take sacrifices when you quit a job and you stay home, it's a sacrifice on your family, and you just do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
And we did it. And I have great kids,
Nice.
and I really believe it's because I was a
You made
hands-on
that
parent.
decision. Yeah.
Mhm.
Very good. Thanks, Londa. Doreen, let's go this way.
Probably, so this is my dad, always reminds me of this. So I went to Cal Poly, and for my whole time at Cal Poly, I was a child development major. I was determined I was going to be a preschool director. It's my passion. I'm gonna love it. And then my final quarter, I did an internship, and it was working in a school for students with special needs in San Luis Obispo. And I worked with a speech therapist down there. I was intrigued by it, and then decided I was gonna go back to school after I graduated with my bachelor's, get my degree in speech pathology. So that was my little fork in the road. And I literally was I'm done with school. My dad's happy. Oh, 4 years, I'm done. And it was my fork in the road, and I ended up in Sacramento and ended up here.
Here you are.
Here I am.
Very good.
Back where you came from. We all come back.
It's an acronym. Why you back again?
Yeah,
Why you
that's
back
true.
again?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Nice. Shelley?
Well, let's see, I've got a lot of turning points.
You really do.
So I met my husband on a blind date, and we got married 6 months later. And when I met him, he was in the Army, and he had joined the Army as a 17-year-old kid. He was basically given a choice, juvie or the Army. So he chose the Army, and he went in for 4 years, and I met him at the tail end of that, and he got out of the service, and we moved to Carson City. He wanted me to just shack up with him, and moved to Carson City, and I was like, well, I already had a daughter from a previous messed up relationship. I said, I'm not moving all the way to Carson City, Nevada. I lived in Pueblo, Colorado. I'm not moving all the way out there without a commitment. So he said, well, I guess we'll get married, and that was our big romantic.
Guess I'll keep you.
So, I mean, I had turned down a full ride scholarship to go to college when I got out of high school, and didn't have much of an education beyond high school. So I was working at JCPenney catalog, and he was working washing circuit boards for Sertel in Nevada, and he came home one day and he says, I went and talked to the Air Force recruiter today. I said, when do we leave? And so he rejoined the military, and we spent 18 years in the Air Force.
Wow.
And I didn't actually get to go to college until I was, till my kids were in preschool. I was 29 when I started. It took me 7 years. And, we got orders. I had to transfer schools a couple times. When we got to Cheyenne, Wyoming, I had to drive 65 miles one way just to finish my education and get my teaching, they call it licensure in Colorado, but I did that. And then we got transferred to Beale, and I was looking for a job, and I went down to Grant Union, and I'll never forget the day I went and applied there, and the teacher's parking lot was enclosed with a fence and a guard station and a razor wire.
Yeah.
Scared the crap out of me. But I got that job, I was hired there, and then I was also hired, they offered me a position at Don Julio Middle School, and little kids are not my thing. And Yuba Gardens in Marysville offered me a job, and I just wasn't really digging any of those offers. So I went one last time to Yuba City's office, and it was down on the Garden Highway at that time, and a gal named Sally Whitaker said, Shelley, there's an opening at Yuba City High School. Have you been over there? I said, well, no. And so I went and talked to Cindy Sutton, and I said, well, here's my transcripts and my,
I sat down and filled it all out with, it was not bed joined back then, it was like, you do it on paper, which was really cool. And I handed her all my stuff, and she says, well, do you want me to make copies? I said, no, these are copies for you, I will do stuff. And by the time I got home, I was called by the principal at University High School and asked for an interview, and was offered that job, and I was in the same classroom for 23 years,
Wow.
so.
Who was the principal then?
Dr. Highland,
Okay, just
Oh,
curious.
Bill.
Bill, and Zeller,
That's not-
Bill Zeller, Dr. Highland, Kurt Schroeder, Jamie Perez, and Larry Bryant were my interview panel.
Oh, wow,
I know, it was
it's
crazy.
a bunch, huh?
Yeah, all men. It was like, what the heck? You don't have any women in your English department? So, anyway,
Great.
but
Thanks,
that was, there you go.
Great story. Yep, great.
So about 24 years ago, right about now-ish, I was down in San Luis Obispo, visiting some friends for Mardi Gras. So whenever Mardi Gras takes place down there, we were wrapping up on Sunday, getting ready to come back home. I got in a bad quad wreck and down on the dunes, and so I ended up breaking my right wrist, and came home and had to have surgery. So I ended up with 2 pins in my hand here, 2 pins in my wrist up here, and a bar across it, and I was out of work for 3-4 months, something like that. And it was pretty bored because I couldn't really do much, and I was on leave because I was pretty banged up and could barely walk and all messed up. And thankfully I got to go back to work to go train because I was bored at home. But during that point in time of being at home, still living home with my family, it got to be really, I was 23 years old at that point in time. It was time for me to fly the coop and part from the nest, and it was really evident at that point in time that I'd worn out my welcome of it's time to go. But I went to a friend of mine, Kelly McCluskey, and her mom, Margot McCluskey, the realtor here in town. I said, Margot, how do I buy a house? And she looked at me funny, and she says, well, go see this guy, Ed Bavacqua. And Ed Bavacqua is now in my brother group along with Bill Highland. And went to him and I said, hi, Margot McCluskey. Said to come see you. I want to buy a house. And he said, okay. Bring me this, and this, and this, and that. And so went home, retrieved all that stuff, and got pre-approved to buy a home. And I knew that's probably the route I wanted to go because I had friends at that point in time that were doing, I called it 6-month tours out of the house. It was move out for 6 months, get kicked out of an apartment complex for too many parties or a house, whatever it was, back at home. And I knew once I left that I wasn't welcome back. It was, it was one of those things where you're out.
Yeah.
And so I bought a house
Wow.
at 23, and really no guidance from, other than that I broke my wrist, and that was my first house I bought.
And you stayed in real estate then, or was that later?
And I worked for BCI at that point in time, which became WorldCom.
Okay.
WorldCom blew up like Enron, the greedy CEO at the top, stealing from everyone. So that was another kind of turning point. That's part of that was fork in the road. I was offered to go to Texas with my group because we were all getting laid off, and we got a severance package. And my boss at that point in time said, "You want to go to Texas?" He says, "I have room for 20 people. I'll take you with me if you want to go." And I said, "Texas? What am I going to do in Texas?"
Yeah.
And I said, "No, I'm good. I'll stay
Great.
in Yuba City." So I stayed here.
There you are.
But no, I got real estate after a couple years down the road.
Okay, all right, well, good.
So that was my first experience. Margo just said, sure,
Sure,
do
you can
this.
buy a house.
But yeah, and so I told my parents, I'm buying a house, and they, so it was my dad and stepmom, they said, "You're doing what?"
Yeah.
I said, "I'm buying a house." And it was like, "Oh, okay, how you do that?" And I said, "With money."
Yeah. Good for you. What a great investment. Great, thanks, Greg.
Yep.
Scott?
So interesting. So my story has a little similar to Londa and Greg. So it's about 24 years ago. I had a fork in the road where I was in investment banking in San Francisco, and the company I worked for was Montgomery Securities. We were in the Transamerica Pyramid. It was bought by several mergers. So we went from we went from a 1,700 employee firm to like a 50,000 employee firm, within a year. And things were changing. They're moving my department out to Manhattan, and I'm all, honey, you want to go to Manhattan? She's all, no. So we started talking about. We had two kids at that time. And so we just started thinking about family and what we're gonna do and what's important in life. And so she said, let's go to Auburn. My family's there. It's a great place to raise kids. I'm all, how am I gonna make money in Auburn? But put family first, and then started figured it out, and eventually landed in schools. Through a few different career choices, and been doing this for about 13 years now. Yeah, so
Great.
so it was my wife. It was my wife. Always is.
It was a shared decision, but she decided.
I don't think I had much of a decision.
So no Manhattan, here you are in Yuba City.
Yeah. But actually, and it's funny, I struggled with the decision at the time, but it was the best decision. I'm actually in Auburn. Best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
Focusing on family, smaller town. It was the best decision I ever made. So, yeah.
Very good, very good. Kirsten?
So mine was, I'd say in August 2011. I was a major accounts manager for an international Fortune 500 company, global company. And I was the number one for my job on the West Coast. And I had found a lot of success and a lot of respect in the company. And they flew my husband and I out to the Dominican Republic at a 5-star posh resort, and we had dinner with the vice president of the company, and there was an awards ceremony with the president of it, and talking about promotion, and everybody was like, you're on the top of your game, this is amazing. And they've flown other star people out to that thing. And I'll never forget, my husband and I were in the big pool, palms, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. And we're out there and we're swimming around, and it was okay. It was okay. It was I guess most people would be like, wow, that was a really great vacation and everything. I was like, I guess, all right, I think it was all right. But I remember for 3 years, my husband and I had been trying to have children, and we couldn't, and we lost our first child. And I was swimming around the pool, we were swimming, and I looked at him, I said, I'd give all this up for a family. And I was at the top of my career, whatever that means. And we were making really good money. It was, we were dinks, double income, no kids, and but it wasn't fulfilling. I guess it should have been, but it wasn't. And I just remember saying that to him, and he agreed. And anyway, that was the month we got pregnant with my daughter Mila.
Wow.
And she is turning 12 next month, and I kept getting requests to go back to work. They were like, we'll you can stay home most of the time, and you can just come and negotiate these higher contract bids, and we'll fly you out to Nissan and fly you out over all of these people to negotiate these things. And I just didn't want to have. I just knew that these years were going to go really fast. And I was going to be there for him.
And they do.
And they do, oh my gosh. He's listening to
Trust me,
Taylor
they do.
Swift.
We're all gonna get teary.
I was like, I know, it was crazy. But even through all of because when you have a shift like that, when you go from knowing what success looks like on a day-to-day basis, and you're with peers or you're with people who tell you that was a great job on that or whatever, and then to little people who don't talk to you and you do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. It was probably one of the biggest shifts in my whole life. And but man, I got to hold my babies while they slept and read to
100%.
them, and I primarily homeschool them myself, and I love it, and a life lived less for myself is a better one, I think. So that was my fork.
Great story.
Great story. Hence why we're all here working for kids, because
Yes.
we put them first.
Yeah.
As, yeah.
I've heard a lot of responses and stories. This is the first fork in the road I've heard that happened in a pool.
In a pool. In a pool, and by the way, let the record show I was wearing a one piece and was totally mocked for it. I was totally mocked by the higher ups in this company and whatever. I was like, we sit in a boardroom, we sit across the conference room table, you do not get to see what I look like in my underwear. I'm sorry. Like, you are not that close to me. And they mocked, but I didn't care. As you can tell, I don't care. I'll mock myself.
Tino.
Sorry. Mine was in 2003. I just got out of the Marines, moved back to Roseville, and I was younger, obviously. And so I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to this college group at Adventure Church, basically to go meet, that's where they go to meet somebody. You're young, so I was at this college group, and they were passing around these cards to get involved. And like, I looked at this card, and a lot of it was like, some of it was kind of boring. I was like, that doesn't sound interesting. There was this one like checkbox that said like Young Life. And it talked about like working with kids or whatever. And I was like, oh, that could be cool. So I just checked this box, and I got a call from somebody like a couple weeks later, and I basically started working with like high school kids, like kind of in ministry. And I graduated my high school, and then I fell into high school coaching football at the same time at my alma at Wood Creek. So I basically just kind of, I got out of the military. I thought I was gonna be a police officer. That was my goal. I was all ready to go, gung ho, running, going chasing people. I was like, yeah, let's go do this. And I ended up coaching football, and then I was going to Sac State, and I really just kind of I felt like working with kids just was a calling. And basically the fork in the road was I never expected to be in this seat, ever, let alone be a high school principal or to be a high school English teacher or to work with kids. I expected to be going to like running after bad guys and like chasing them and stuff.
Yeah.
And you're doing just as much paperwork now as you would be as a police officer.
So it's a good trade-off.
Probably true.
Yeah, so that was
Very
my
good.
fork in the road.
Thanks, Tino. Okay. Chris?
2016, I'm working as head custodian at Gray Avenue Middle School. Another custodian had gotten hurt at work. My wife said, you can't keep doing this forever. You either need to go apply for a tech job or go to school. And I wanted to be the best candidate I could be for a position, so I went to school. Got my bachelor's in information technology. 2020, Mark Button comes to me and says, we need to change your hours. We want you to work in the afternoons. And I decided that's not going to work for my family. I got 3 kids at that point, and I'm like, can't do that. That doesn't make sense. And I walked over, I talked to one of the techs at the school, and then I walked over and had a conversation with James Lohman, and like, here you have a couple positions, and became a site tech in October of that year, right before kids came back, so I never had to do all the protocols with hybrid teaching. I went into being a site tech. Now I'm support specialist and doing training next week to eventually make my way up to become a system specialist when a position opens up. So
Yeah. Great story.
You were at RV when that happened, weren't you?
I started at Butte Vista, and then I went to RV, but I was working at King Avenue. Well, I was at Gray at the start of pandemic. Then I moved to King, so I could stay mornings until the position opened up in the department. So,
And just a little, because of what Chris has done, he is going to be recognized as one of the Educator of the Year for the Southern County
Nice.
Superintendent of Schools, was nominated and selected, so.
Very, very cool.
I don't
Spoiler
feel
alert.
deserving, but
Stop
deserving.
it. Stop it. You were a great custodian, just so you know, too.
oh yeah.
You
I
worked
always-
very
I
hard.
always
This guy
felt,
worked very hard.
you know, the customer service that I learned as a custodian just feeds into what I do, answering phones and helping parents and students.
Truly nice.
That's great.
And now I'm here serving you guys.
We appreciate you.
That's great. Thanks, Chris. Laura?
Um, 26 years ago, my dad passed away, and we were a very tight family unit. My aunts and uncles and all, we all lived right there in the Bay Area. We actually left the San Francisco area and moved to the East Bay, which was a crime. But we were still right there on the Bay Area. After my dad passed away, my husband and I talked about the fact that living in the Bay Area has a lot of positive opportunities, but it's also a very stressful lifestyle, and it wasn't quite what we wanted. We had 3 horses that we boarded, and God, we were paying as much for their boarding as we were for our mortgage. So it just, you know, it wasn't the lifestyle that we wanted to live together. So we started looking for places to move to, and the sport that we did with our horses, a lot of it was up in Spenceville, up there behind Beale, and we started looking for some place to live. We found our house up here and broke the news to my family. They thought they didn't believe us, actually, to be totally honest with you. The house went up for sale and they still didn't believe we were moving. And so we found a house in Yuba City. I was in retail, and the opportunity came about to transfer from my store in Pleasanton to a store in Sacramento. And everything just kind of fell together, and my mother and sister and brother just didn't believe we were moving. I don't know where they thought we were gonna go when the house sold, but we weren't living in the Bay Area. So Tom and I moved up here, and then when my mom retired, she moved up here, and then a few years later, my sister moved up here. And my brother moved to Wisconsin. He's way out there now.
Yeah.
But it was a huge decision, because my cousins, we all lived very tight in the Bay Area together, and like I said, the fact that we moved to the East Bay was, not good. I mean, my aunt wouldn't drive over by herself. She had to have someone drive her because it was too far. So it was very challenging to break away like that.
East Bay, we're in the East Bay.
Danville.
Another beautiful area.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and we moved there in 77. So it was, when we moved there to Danville, it was very small. They had a moratorium on building. And then a few years later, that was lifted, and well, now you've got, we moved there was one house in Black Hawk. And our realtor kept saying, you gotta move to Black Hawk. And my parents were thinking, that's so far out there. There's no, when you're living, that's so far out there. Yeah, it is a pretty area.
Neat story. Great, thanks, Laura. Thank you. Horace.
I guess when I was in high school, I finished my high school credits early, and I didn't know what I
Where were you in
wanted.
high school?
Huh?
Where'd you go to
I
high
went to Valley High School in Elk Grove Unified School District, and back then there was not a lot in Elk Grove. We lived off Elk Grove Florin Road, like closer to Elk Grove Boulevard, and there was nothing out there but cows. My mom is from Mississippi, and she just likes rural areas. I don't know what's wrong with it. But because of that, my dream was always to live in a big city. I wanted to live in New York City, but I'll get there in a moment. And so I finished my, I was supposed to go to Elk Grove High School, but we ended up going to Valley High School, and I don't remember the exact reasoning why. I finished my credits early, and so they had a work-study program in Elk Grove Unified School District, and I had a lot of time, so they actually put me at one of their elementary schools. It's John Earhart Elementary School, and I was kind of like a girl Friday, because I was there for 4.5 hours a day. Had a lot of time, and sometimes I was in the office. But then one day, the Principal Yamamoto, she said she wanted me to go and work with the student that I don't want to say they had written this kid off, but nobody could understand what he was saying. When he was speaking, he was like, and he had a speech impediment, and they didn't know if he knew how to read. And so they had me pull him out, and I was teaching him to read. And quite honestly, at first I didn't know if he knew how to read. And I don't think he really did, but I worked with him for a year. And during that time, I was taking my last required classes, and I was, getting ready to graduate. I always did well in school, but for some reason, I wasn't really thinking about my college going process, and I was going to go to Casinas River College, which is where I ended up going first.
And I wasn't really thinking about like what I wanted to do, except for that I wanted to move to a city. That was like my goal and aspiration. I wanted to move to New York City. And I didn't know, like I mean, people would ask you, and I was like, oh, I want to be a lawyer, but I was I was the first person in my family to go to college. Well, that's not true. My brother went to college, and then he got married when he was 19, and then he graduated after I did. So, I was there, and they had me, and I was like, oh, I kind of like being with kids. I like teaching. When I finally started understanding this little boy, and understanding that he was reading along, it was just like a great moment for me where I'm like, I want to be a teacher. I never became a teacher. Well, I did teach, but not. I never got I never cleared a credential because I moved around a little bit. So I ended up going to Casitas River College. Then I transferred to University of Pacific. And then as soon as I graduated, I had taken the GRE. I did really well on that. I've always done well on standardized tests. I got into NYU. I moved to New York. So that fulfilled my dream. But it was only supposed to be for 2 years, and I was supposed to come back. And so as soon as I finished my master's degree, I quit my job. I let go of my apartment. I moved back home, and I thought there was a job in Elk Grove Unified, and I thought I was going to get that job immediately, and I didn't get the job. As a matter of fact, I came home and California attacked me. I lost my voice. And during the interview, I couldn't talk. And then they gave me like a calculus test during that interview, and I didn't do well. And then so I was home. I didn't have a job. I was applying for things, and I got a job at Johns Hopkins University. So I ended up back on the East Coast. And I know Johns Hopkins is in Maryland, but they had an office in New York City. So I ended up back in New York. And it was like supposed to be a 2-year pit stop trying to be there. And I forgot to say that I did get into the New York City Teaching Fellows program, but then I didn't do that program. So I've had a few opportunities where I could have taught. And I think I told the board why I ended up not teaching. I ended up teaching at a special education program in New York City, and I had an incident. And then I was offered a job at Columbia University at the same time, so I quit that job, and then I never went back into the classroom. I have always wanted to work in education, but I really wanted to do things where I could support the educational process, and so teachers could focus on teaching, because I kind of felt like in the job that I was in at the time when I was leading a classroom, it was always bureaucracy, and I was like, didn't have time for lesson planning. I ended up being in my office or in my classroom late at night trying to get the room ready so that I could teach people with learning disabilities. And also, I should have been teaching people with learning disabilities without a credential, but that's another story. Anyway, I ended up being in New York for almost 15 years. My love of big cities, I started to see what my mom liked about it, so I came back to California. I was working for the College Board at the time, and they said I could work remotely. So I came back, and I was living in Elk Grove, working remotely. I hate working remotely. I don't know why people want to do that. I thought it's very lonesome. I hated sitting in the office, my bedroom office, and sitting by myself. And so I got a job with San Francisco Unified School District doing exactly what I wanted to do, which was like I wanted to be back in special education. I wanted to be supporting teachers and doing things. At least I thought it was going to be exactly what I wanted to be. But I was helping. I was doing operations for the special education department in San Francisco. And I'm not going to keep going about every job I've had. But then I ended up being in the Bay Area for about 10 years, and I never wanted to be in the Bay Area. Even when I wanted to get into the city, you see, I went to New York. I didn't go to San Francisco. So this opportunity came up, and I had applied for a job in San Juan, and I was a finalist there, and they said, well, you're an unknown factor. No one knows who you are. And it was through the SSC, and so I had made some connections there. When I saw this position come up, I called Danielle, and I was like, look, I know it's a small town. Am I going to encounter the same thing where, they want to have someone who's in-house? She says, no, they're really looking for different opportunities. So I came out and I interviewed. I got in an accident in Santa Rosa, by the way. I went to Napa for the weekend for a music festival, and on the way back I got rear-ended pretty badly. They totaled the car I was driving. But I was still, and I never told Doreen this, but a couple of the interviews, I was laying on my back when someone drove me here for my interviews, and I'd come in, and then I'd come in and pretend like I was okay, but I was in great pain. And so we did that, and I got the job. I was really excited. And people were like, "You want to move to Yuba City?" And I was like, "Yeah, Yuba City is like the town I grew up in. It really reminds me of like where I grew up." And so to me, it's not like I'm leaving the big city. I felt like I was really coming home, and I'm really excited about being here. And quite honestly, of all the jobs I had, I didn't think I was going to be sitting in the assistant superintendency either. So this is like my dream job.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great story. You had a number of forks in the road, didn't you?
Oh, I didn't even tell you them. I just kind of did.
Well, that's great. Yeah, it's great hearing everyone's story, you know, and I think one of the reasons we do this is that you're all part of a team. And we know that effective teams are based on trust and respect between and among the people in the team. And so that's not easy to develop sometimes, but certainly understanding who everybody is in the team, kind of what their background is, what's important to them. And like Londa said, it's pretty clear that all of you at some point made some commitment, made decisions along the way that often involved kids. And you all made the decision to be sitting around here as part of the Yuba Unified School District. So I think it's a great way to kind of reinforce the fact that we're all in this together. And so let's try to understand where everybody's coming from, their experiences, and then build some success together. So this is called the Effective Governance System. This is the framework for everything, all the CSBA trainings. And so just like Kirsten said, this gives kind of a roadmap for how you can be effective. And it's made up of 7 components. And I'm going to kind of review them quickly, and then I'm going to have you kind of apply this, folks next to you apply Yuba City to how you see yourselves.
Can I read something really quick that I wanted to share with them?
Sure.
I didn't interrupt you. So during our board meeting the other night, my phone was blowing up from some people that were watching. This is gonna make you guys feel good. I don't have a lot of respect for this person, but anyway. This is the most impressive board meeting I've ever listened to. I'm so impressed with you guys as a new board. Thank you for all you do.
Aww,
I just thought I'd tell you that.
And
we
that's,
told them.
that's not from your mother?
No, it's not from my mother. She doesn't listen to the board meetings.
Oh.
She doesn't want to be asleep.
Oh.
But no, it was, I just thought that was neat, that, I got like 3 texts kind of like that. So there's people paying attention, and it's nice to know you're valued.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah, that's very good. Alrighty, so let me just quickly review what the components are. We start with that first one on the left. You remember, CSBA has identified 8 characteristics of effective trustees. It also applies to superintendents, senior staff, and teachers in many ways. So we think if you have an individualist mindset, you're very mindful about what's going on and the effectiveness of the group. You're a systems thinker. You're really realizing how the district is made up of all these components, and it takes a while to understand how this department works with this department. So you need to be a system thinker. You need to be prepared. Everybody, I'm sure, is prepared for board meetings. But deep learning is a little more that, as you know, the longer you're on in this job, that you learn more and more about what it is and what the issues are. So effective individuals are deep learners. They really are learning as deeply as they can. Strategic focus, and so this really should be separated here. Strategic focus is really the whole point of what we do, because we don't have time to do everything. So, but if we can really prioritize what we should be doing and do it well, we have a lot better chance of succeeding. Effective individuals understand their manner. They realize that what they say is important, but how you say it is just maybe even more important. And that manner really is made up of words, but it's also made up of nonverbal, and it's made up of tone of voice. And so realizing that when you say something, you may not offend somebody, but maybe it's just the way that came across might be offensive or might disturb somebody. There's no question of commitment. You took Those of you board members took an oath of office to faithfully commit and to fulfill your responsibilities. And confidentiality, as we all know, is very important. So that's kind of an individual governance mindset. And so you can't do anything else about anybody else's individual mindset, but you can work on your own. And so that's kind of an individual task. And so then if you jump over that green triangle, those are kind of the, Tino, you were part of coaching football, and you know what part of successful teams is that you know your roles and responsibilities on the team. The team has a unity of purpose, and everybody knows what it is that where you want to go. And we say in education, it comes with a moral imperative. We have moral responsibility to be effective together and to work together. And then also we have principles about governance as part of the team. There are norms and protocols, the way you treat each other in terms of norms, and the protocols of how we get things done are all important part of the team. But how do you get from that individual to the team mindset? You go through a very important process, and that's called a transition to collaborative partnerships. There are a lot of kids in football that are not able to make that transition where they realize they'll be successful as everybody else is successful. It's all about me. So it's all about me, and we say it's important to go to I to we without losing me. So you're making a commitment to be a part of a team. It doesn't mean you're gonna agree all the time. It doesn't mean that, that you won't have differences, but you're committed to solve problems together and work as a team. So a very important transition is that color. So then you look at that purple area. The board, Kirsten goes to the store, and somebody comes up to her and says, Kirsten, what are your responsibilities as a trustee? She says, well, it's very simple. I help set the direction for the district. We establish the structure. We provide support for the system. We ensure accountability, and we provide community leadership. So when we start looking at the board calendar, the board has 5 responsibilities in these areas. Now, when you drop down to district functions, those are that's the work that happens in the district. Some of you are responsible for these areas. The board has a responsibility in all of them in terms of the oversight and setting the overall direction and all those responsibilities. So then the bottom line there is current trends and issues in public education. How do you possibly keep track of everything that's going on? What's happening around you in the community, what's happening in the state, what's happening in the country? How does that affect us? How can we be proactive in terms of addressing issues before we're faced with a crisis around something? And you can see those arrows, it kind of informs everything we do. And that final one on the right, and those of you who've seen this before know that the key is success for each and every student. If we're doing all these other 6 components and our focus is not for success for each and every student, we're wasting the community's time and we're not fulfilling our responsibility. So success for each and every student needs to be the focal, has to be the North Star of what we do. And hearing all of your reasons for all being here, it's really clear that's why you're here for the students. That's not the case everywhere I go, and as you know around the state, there's a lot of dysfunction in ways. I think we talked about the last meeting, the Lighthouse City showed that districts that are focused and functional are able to influence student achievement irrespective of the demographics of the district, if they follow certain ways to really do that. And if this group is not focused and functional, it gives permission for the rest of the community to say, oh, it's okay to be dysfunctional there. Why do I have to be focused and functional in the schools or in some other area? So you're modeling what it means to problem solve, and that's a challenge because 7-member boards. It's we talked the last time about how in a group of 6 with a 5-member board, there's 15 one-to-one relationships within a group of 6. But once you go to a group of 8, it almost doubles to 28 one-to-one relationships. So when one of those relationships isn't positive, it's going to influence the whole group. So, you know, we have workshops like that because it helps us remember we're all in this together. We can work together. Respect and trust for each other is built on experiences like this and being successful together. And that, you know, the bottom line from a football team is you may not win all the games, but you'll feel successful as a team because only one team wins the Super Bowl. I mean, you can't base it on winning your last game, your success. So this is the framework, and it sets the stage for what we're gonna do with the board calendar. Let's just take a minute and, so Cloris and Londa, I want you to look at the first two components there, individual and transition. And then Doreen and Shelley, look at the team, kind of the green, the team governance mindset, the green area. And then Scott and Greg, look at the responsibilities and the district functions. And Kirsten and Tino, you'll look at current trends and issues in education. And Laura and Chris, you get the tough one. You get success for each and every student. So just quickly talk for a couple minutes. When you look at your assigned components or component, what are a couple of things that you think you're doing in the city that are successful? What are some of the things that when you see this, you can say, I think we're doing a pretty good job in this area. So try and find one or two things that you think when you look at that component, what are we doing pretty well? So just take a couple of minutes, talk with your partner. One of you just, I'll have you share out what you're talking about.
So we're
No.
So I'd say that's
current trends and issues.
Are we the district functionality?
Yeah.
I thought we were current trends.
You're the current trends.
Okay, all right, so we're current trends. What are we doing?
But I usually don't think that was
Here's the
Current
fact.
trends and
What it would
issues.
take to get there.
I think one of the
Yeah, 100%. But for me,
I agree, and I said, you know, yeah, so.
But I think the board,
bringing everybody in here,
my last board,
based on
plan around that.
CSB's
And the board,
recommendations.
the board of that process, I think is huge.
That was at 3%. Like the first readings and second readings.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. I was saying for.
Right.
Initiate that.
But also even if I'm you know, that's also.
I question everything.
Like if you, yeah, so that. But the structure
You gave us all
things, or, you know, all the plans, right, you know, education to, all caps that, you know, we'll be kind of into this in June.
You're right, thanks,
How the
CSBA.
budget presentation will support.
I would say,
Even though some of the structures that we do a pretty good job, we can get better, that's what I mean, you know, we're doing pretty good.
I was a woman,
So I'm sure you don't really know. That is.
yeah, there's so
something
much that I hope the atmosphere, the way.
How she's doing with
That does be a
she validates you guys, we validate her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, you know, ensuring accountability, because, you know,
all the class asked really pointed questions.
your employer, superintendent,
I actually worked at
but she needs to hold, you know, of course, her assistant students, but everybody else is accountable, like, you know, what's important to the board, you know, start with the superintendent, and then,
all boils down to like.
she needs to hold, you know,
Like student collaboration.
Yeah. Well, just having a culture.
also, I think,
Yeah, I think that's.
We had that with
we
the
have a pretty engaged
Well, that's what I'm
board
saying.
when it comes
Wednesdays
to,
we have every Wednesday
say,
night.
board
Yeah.
actions that come up for
Yeah.
action, there's
that was-
not always just a rubber stamp, you know, so there's
That's
definitely
more
some
of a
discussion,
discussion, I think,
so that's what you're on, but
Right.
point of
I
accountability,
feel like it's a
say,
current trend.
questions, you know, hey, why are we doing that?
Rather than authoritarian. That's it.
I was on the demonstration of community leadership
trends, issues.
All the ones that are coming to my head are like hot topics.
Small amount, but really kind of
Hey, just another minute and then we'll report out. We have one person report.
I would be out.
You guys are out there in the community.
Why?
Going to some of the
Why is
workshops,
trying to hurt
so
you?
it's not for fun.
Why you're being purposely hurtful, you know?
Think about current trends.
Yeah.
Be invisible.
Yeah, we are pretty
and,
good.
uh,
We are fantastic.
There's a trend.
And it's not just you guys, Doreen is always
Well,
part of the team.
they're not,
We're doing that too.
did you already?
Yeah.
They're not inextricably linked. They're both and, not either or. They're both.
Right.
Old friends have issues.
Yeah, what are some ways? Collaboration. What's other trends?
Oh, no, I'm never been a Trump person.
Yeah, but also you guys have been working, you guys set your board priorities, right? So that's kind of strategic goals, right? Your board priorities,
When
that's,
did we start, when did this one start being one?
we take that.
Are you talking about, I'm talking about last
And we're
year?
going, LCAS is gonna be, you know,
Well, we just bought all bunch for.
everything that we look at, every time that we look at, we go look at board priorities and say, is it, hey, this is the board priorities, we need to align whatever we're doing with those, right? So I think
Well, and I don't have the virtual goggles.
that you guys have done is really like set
So
the
we
tone
are
for
here.
everything.
I wouldn't necessarily go along that way, though. I have no staff just telling me, you know, parents are having all the experiences, people always want to every
Alrighty, everyone,
But it is
if I
the
can
way it is.
interrupt, me too, because you're talking to each other, but, interest of time, let's hear, Wanda or Clarence, do you wanna just share one or two things you talked about that you think you folks are doing well here?
Well, I
regarding
think we
youth
talked
components?
about, we said we're doing well on all of it. Great.
Okay.
But, I would say the commitment is just really, you know, we're committed and we're just committed.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
I like
We're
that.
here for, I mean, most of us who watched the last few years of the board, I don't know, I feel we're fantastic, so, and we're committed and we're doing things that we should need to be doing for our students.
Great.
You know, I'm proud of what we do and I'm proud of the district, I really am.
Well, and as individuals, if you can be a bunch of things, but if you're not committed
Right,
to kids, if you're not committed to the team,
right.
It's
then
gonna affect
it's
all
really,
the other
you're
places.
not, that's really the
Well, for
hard
me,
part.
being able to have worked in the school district for a long time, I worked for YCUSD Unified for 20 years, now I work for Sutter County Superintendent, but, you know, everyone has always said, oh my God, the district office, blah, 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 you know, and I'm like, dude, it's not that bad, and you don't understand, I understand so much more now than I did just working, and they do care, and it's like, you care, but you can't, and I tell them that, I go, the DO is not the bad place. These people really do care about the teachers and the students, and I tell people that a lot, and I'm like, cause if they say, oh my God, you know, cause it had a bad rap for a while, but it's, you don't know what's behind the scenes until you're behind the scenes.
Right. Right.
And so, and thankfully, some of my friends trust me when I say that, and they've gone, okay, I believe what you're saying.
Right.
You know?
Londa is our best encourager. She's a great.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's
It's
true,
true.
because you know, it's, oh my God, the district office, nobody cares there. No, they do care. But there's a whole, we have a ton of people that we have to care about, and this has to be, you know, the cuts and the layoffs, it sucks. I mean, I went home and cried. It sucks, but I get it. It's something we have to do, and, you know, and you really do take everybody's interest at heart, and, so anyway, I think we're amazing.
Great. Flores, did you do a good job reporting for your group?
Oh,
Okay, good, okay. Alrighty. Shelley or
well,
Maureen?
you know, team governance mindset, I was elected to a very different board than what we have now. Greg is the only one who was actually on that board, is on the current board. And it's a much better board. Much more of a team, much less rancor.
think is the best word for it. Not saying that, you know, everything's perfect, but I think, we do have a positive, governance culture. I think we're pretty supportive, of the cabinet. Things that, I mean, not that we appreciate everything or like everything, but, you know, and when we ask hard questions, we get answers, and I think that's a good thing. So that's.
Great. So you have not only a governance team with the board members and the superintendent, but a broader team including senior staff, and that's not the case a lot of places. It's really, that has to be built in to have the trust and respect of each other in respecting the roles of the board and the staff. It's always a good goal, so.
Be counterproductive otherwise.
Yeah, you go a little backwards. Thank you, Shelley. Okay, Greg or Scott, how about those two you got?
You wanna do it or you want me?
One, you do one. Perfect teamwork.
Okay.
So setting the direction and strategic goals, Scott are talking, I threw out that I feel like we're going through our master facilities plan, but that's starting to set a goal of what we gotta do, like, hey, here's the facts, here's what we gotta work towards, how we achieve it. Scott did bring up, you know, setting our board priorities is part of that too, and I agree with that. And now it's, I guess, really, for our master facilities, establishing the structure, we really have to, okay, here's the facts of like what it's gonna take to get to where we gotta go. Obviously, we can't just scratch a check for, was it just shy of $1 billion, 750 million, pocket change, no big deal. Can't just scratch a check for it, but we gotta start somewhere.
Right.
How are we gonna get there? And I'll let Scott jump in now.
Yeah, okay, that was good. You know, we talked about, I felt like we could have good examples in each of these areas where we felt some positivity. I'll hit ensure accountability. I feel that there's definitely a lot of engagement when we have board meetings on topics and discussion. So, and you know, sometimes there's some hard questions, and but it is ensuring accountability, and I'm sure they also have direct one-on-ones with Doreen as far as you know, their one employee as far as that accountability. But and Doreen will definitely hold us accountable as well. So, but I think that's a good area that we do pretty well.
Great, good. Thanks, Scott. And Greg? Kirsten?
Go for it.
And we talked about, in terms of a trend, this in this district is collaboration in terms of from the top down from here, the governance of the board to cabinet. Now, even within our teaching, with our teachers, we have very, at our negotiations last year, we have every Wednesday's a collaboration day, so there's a very strong collegial collaborative focus. That was something we kind of talked about.
All right. And to kind of pay attention to kind of what's happening in other places and the success and kind of building on that.
Well, yeah, but I think CSBA is a big part about that. I mean, obviously, like, we get the board policy and the recommendations from CSBA that we'll look at. So I feel like we can't really talk about this without, kind of giving you a gold star. So there you go, there it is. It's worth $0.
For those comments, you received 10 more points.
I received 10 points.
Yeah.
You get 10 gold stars.
I saw a great presentation. It was a writing program in the Bay Area Writers Project, and one of the teachers was a science teacher, and he had these great techniques. He said, I give out points for everything, and the kids don't realize I have unlimited points to give away. And he was just like, and the other thing he had was just kind of cool. He said, I made up a stamp that you can stamp your books with. And it said, to my favorite student from Mr. Brown. And kids would line up down the block to get that in the book. And they knew it was a big stamp, and that they wanted that in their book. So,
oh man, we're so
great
dumb.
technique. So there's lots of ways to really, great.
I always
Okay,
wanted a stamp
last
that
one.
said, of all the students I ever had, you were one. I always wanted that
Yeah,
stamp.
Pretty,
absolutely.
pretty.
Alrighty, let's hear from the next group.
You want to do it or you want me to?
I can do it.
Okay, can you remember ready?
I can.
Okay.
Alright, so we had success for each and every student, And just looking at all the programs and opportunities that our students have for the whole student, there's 11,814 students enrolled today. And so they can be in CTE programs, early college programs. We have wellness centers for those kids that need that social emotional support. They've got access to 21st century classrooms with modular furniture and technology for both the instructors and the students. There's professional development for the staff so that they can be the very best educators they can be, so that our students can have that success. Oh, and can't forget the student nutrition program. If kids are hungry, they can't be learning. So there's many opportunities for them to be fed and then go off to do extracurricular activities outside of the regular academics, so that way that whole student is affected.
And I think one of the things we talked about last time is that this used to say success for all students. And we have feedback from a number of board members, superintendents, saying, well, that's a nice statement, but everybody says 16. And so we said, what would be a clear statement? And we ended up with each and every. And that's, Chris was out right with it. You have 11,814 kids. Each one of them is valuable, and each one should be the focus of what they're doing. And it sounds like the research has shown that kids that are highly engaged, number one, have at least one adult and probably a teacher who believes in their success, and that they have, the school provides ways for them to develop on their strengths. So all the things that you do, the opportunities, whether it's sports or arts or whatever, to debate, whatever it is, it's a way to keep kids engaged and offering a variety of programs, which is a challenge when you've got limited resources and you're looking at all these things. So, all right, very important document. It's the framework for all the trainings, and your comments were great. But we're going to make a transition, I think right now, I think the best use of our time is in your packet, you should find 2 calendars. And so, one is a draft of the Yuba City, which is a blueprint. And then you have a black and white long page in black and white, which is the CSBA sample district calendar. So I know you're going to pay attention to each one of these. I'm just going to highlight each line, but in a few minutes you're going to spend some time working in pairs and looking at a couple of the different job areas which are listed down the left side. So basically what a district governance calendar is, it's an opportunity for the board to lay out over the course of a whole year the major decisions they'll have to be making, the reports that they're going to be getting, and it's used as a strategic tool. You're focusing on what the main thing is that you're working on, and you can see also how things are aligned. The systems are aligned. HR doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's dependent on budget. It's dependent on other decisions that are happening. So it's important that the board has kind of a roadmap for what's ahead for the year. This is a great tool because it becomes a tool to share with the community that you're accountable. You have a plan in place, and that's, if they have an issue that they really want to talk about, you can say, hey, that's coming up in 2 meetings. We're going to focus on that. Report's coming in from HR or whatever. And so it's a way to be really focused. And the other thing that's important is that a calendar, let's take finance, for example, and Scott knows this very well because he works on these all day long. But this is not just this year's calendar. You're looking at last year's information with the audit. So you got the audit going on, and so on actuals. You're monitoring this year with interim reports, and you're getting ready to plan the budget which is gonna be next year's program, and you have to show multi-year projections with that. So it's really like 5 years in one. So how does a board member keep track of that? You know, Scott's, that's his job to do finance and facilities probably, but how do you really kind of manage that? And how can people be prepared to make those decisions? And so part of this, but then when you realize it, well, student learning achievement is the same way. You're looking at last year's test results, you're monitoring this year's program, and you're making plans for next year, changes for curriculum plans. So you have to do multi-year projections because you've got enrollments, you've got to plan for kids and programs and all of that. So the goal of this is that the board has, we hope you've got 3 governance tools. One is the board calendar, one is the board governance handbook, which we've talked a little bit about, we'll talk about it in the next section. And board should be doing a board self-evaluation at least once a year. So those are tools to help the board be accountable and to help the governance team be effective working together. It also is a great way for planning for agendas, because you kind of see what's ahead. A lot of boards at the end of the meeting just say, well, let's just look at the calendar, this like we're anticipating the next meeting. Is there something we need to do? And this is not written in stone. It's supposed to be fluid, and it doesn't have to be, some district go, oh, we'll just put our district name at the top. No. You know, this is a sample, because we had so many requests, well, can you do a generic calendar? So it's got a lot of key items in there, and so here's what we'd like you to do. So Clarissa and Londa, we want you to look at on the second page, human resources and collective bargaining. You see those job areas there and what the CSBA calendar looks like? And so we want you to think about the major decisions that the board will make in those areas. And then maybe look at what we have on the sample calendar and say, well, maybe we could make some additions to the calendar based on our looking at that, okay? So those will be your responsibilities.
So it would be
Yeah.
also helpful then also, I don't know, in some way of documenting on one of the documents what you think should be added, because truthfully, I read some of these, Bob, and when I read them, I thought, I don't even know what that is on the CSB, so I didn't put it on there, because I'm like, if I can't explain it, then,
Very
but if the board wants to add those things, then we just need to know what to add. So I left it pretty generic on our blue sheet.
Right.
And so whether you circle it or something, whatever you wanted added, depending on your categories.
Right, and so that's a great suggestion. So like when they're looking at the CSB sample, let's say, finalize superintendent goals and success indicators.
Right,
So you want us to circle in here?
yeah.
So the goal will be that when you report back out, that Laura, you can kind of make notes on the draft, and it can be a combination of things. So we'll save the notes to see if we've captured everything.
If we can just get their copies, everyone's copies, that
Right,
would be good.
right. So our goal would be that we'll feel like we've got kind of a draft that will be a really good tool
Right,
moving forward, looking ahead for the next year virtually. Okay? So, let's see, Kirsten and Tino, you're gonna do student learning and also policy and judicial review. So you're gonna look at policy and judicial review, and that's on the second side, and then you're gonna look at student learning achievement, so you've got a big chunk. But I know you're up for it.
We are.
All right.
Totes.
And then, Scott and Greg, you've got finance and facilities.
Try Scott's alley.
No, this is where you actually do the evaluation
So-
right here as well.
That's the top there.
Like the software commission, we do.
And then Doreen and Londa, you have the
Shelley.
top line. Shelley and Doreen. You have effective governance. Effective governance, which is the first one on the first page, and setting direction.
okay,
Okay.
So these two blocks.
yes.
Are you really including us?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna go put food away.
Oh, wait, no, I'm gonna get more pizza.
Okay.
Go ahead.
These are some stuff, see if we got everything.
We won't know until every year who's running for board positions. And there's three commissions.
Yes, but I would wanna be that diversity manager, because that's what I'm going to recruit. So,
Really not a board
you're gonna
thing,
make
so.
any changes to hiring candidates?
What we have to do once
Yeah,
we
so
get
what I normally do is I
You use
contact
these.
candidates, write them
Well,
notes,
You guys
say,
don't
have
have
a
a say in
say,
it.
write to
Sutter
me,
County
No,
Superintendent's.
cause they really
and
never.
I'll meet, so that's kind of all we
See, to
do.
me,
That's just,
I think the key for you, or what I heard was,
So,
once you guys are elected,
approve the honor
we'd like to, like, get a month later, or is to have this, I think.
That's me.
That's what I heard.
Right, right. I think that's really important, especially
And that's all, that's all.
anybody who's elected to this board who's not worked in
They
the
make
school.
decisions, like hire a coach because someone told you or something.
Yes.
Are
Are you using that?
You said someone in the school board that's never worked in a school.
No, I'm just saying, when you first come on the school board, if you've never really worked in a school, you may not have any idea what you're getting into.
Oh, hell no.
School board.
Oh, hell no.
Great.
So you agree?
Oh, no.
So,
ADA, I'm like, you guys talking about American Disabilities Act on a regular basis. I'm like, that's really important. It's really important to you guys. And I was like,
Greg,
how'd
that's
you attend?
hilarious.
Oh,
That's hilarious.
there's so many acronyms.
Yeah,
I
that's
still don't.
It's true,
No,
it's
there's-
true.
It's not my, this isn't my world.
Essentially, I actually think this isn't bad to have all of this. I think the thing is making sure that the evaluation, the board evaluation, self-evaluation
I
is
got to hear ADA, I'm like,
done. Because that then kind of guides what I want you to do. I think all of these components, you know, because I do this, but this is the key part here and here as board members, making sure that we meet immediately, that,
So that they get some,
yes.
they hit the ground
So
running
now-
basically. And to have, like, when Kirsten and Joe, when they were first elected, they were allowed to go to
Right.
You know.
Right,
that's
now.
right.
This is part of the numbers.
I'm trying to conferences always before, so we just know that they've been, so as long as they've been certified, we let this.
Oh, I thought if you knew.
Because they're really not official.
That's what bouncing is.
Oh, no, no.
That's my job, I'm trying to bounce, I'm like, okay, well, bounce.
So I do like all of that in terms of.
So, you wanna start with student learning,
So
which
it's
is
just
it, your
every-
wheelhouse. What?
I think,
High school graduation,
you know,
So here,
you can see that, but yeah.
deadline for adoption.
but she's actually, so next year's grad
Now, there's an LCAP update on November twelfth,
Is there anything missing?
November twenty-seventh,
You right.
May 14th.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I don't know if I have it on the computer, or do I just want to write this? If I need to put it on the board calendar, you guys know to expect
But
me to
there's
write
no-
it to, just bring it to the board agenda. I mean, there's something that happens every month, like
There's
the-
no, what's,
I
you know,
know.
what on the LCAP line,
March.
the sample one is
yeah.
the LCAP board study session,
Right.
public
Right.
input.
I don't know, other than
Like, where
This might be
there's,
something.
where there's the,
November and December we want it.
Yeah, and
Collaboration.
that's the conversation, so do we just do it, a scaled down mini board
Because,
member
First month, the
orientation?
so January we get the estimate from the governor.
no, I've been not here, you just usually get that.
And so,
What we know is our revenues are going down.
Every
So it's like now, from the board's perspective, it's kind of
No, you
like
can't.
what's most important
I'm not-
because we're gonna have to
I'm not-
figure
you
it
guys
out,
have to-
right, you know? So I think this is probably something
and I
that
think that's.
But
It is a session like this where we get
So
to go
I
over like,
like all of this, it's difficult as
looking
a
at our
council
action items
to
and
bring that to
communicating
agendize
with
it,
you
so
guys.
Laura would
your
be good
strategic
to.
priorities is kind of what we would go on,
In a
but maybe
smaller
just
way,
some sort of,
This bargaining process is different.
just confirming that as we build a budget,
No.
we're gonna focus on the key areas and the priorities.
We don't know because
We're
there's
excited, that's something that-
this board has approved it in the year,
something along those lines.
we've only inherited the LCAP.
Yeah, we say like, yeah, so what we, so my thought would be,
But where would that fall?
we could do like one in September, one in December, so we, so I'm doing that, so, because it is the fifth, and it doesn't change, but everyone knows there'll be an attendance report here and attendance report
Anything else
here.
you wanna add to this?
it would really inhibit.
Declaration of
Right,
need.
yeah.
but when things are tight,
and we're saying to find him, then
We're just,
yeah, so we're
just have
gonna,
to
we have some things to do.
roll
Because, I
around.
mean, just like the father said, the
So,
healthy thing for
the
his
name of
daughter.
it,
Yeah, I
when we get
I would say, it has to be, I'd say DD.
the final guidance
Yeah,
That's
decision,
looking at the
we're
right
gonna
direction.
get revenue, so.
Is that gonna be
The
familiar?
other thing on this is that it just brings up the
I don't think
yes.
there's really much to
Second,
do there necessarily,
second
except
board
maybe
meeting
once
was
they
like
get
December
that
23rd, so you're like,
report, or
before we
something,
do a
we'll
forecast
bring that out to the
update
board.
about what's, what's the proposed one, you guys have to put on that.
But no, it's good, like,
That makes sense.
I mean, I
So,
didn't,
Yeah,
April
well,
might
if
be-
you go all the way back to September,
coming around and.
on this one, it starts with,
It's different
I think
this
that's
year.
probably
I
good.
mean, looking
It's just
July,
some sort of
deadline,
smaller
adoption,
board, as soon as we have information.
budget,
we'll
and
go
LCAP,
to
July first.
And that's like the deadline, I think that's why we approved June, that's why we approved June, so.
They said what's gonna be.
And then, then you look at September, I'll have goal setting right down, desired outcomes for students, all student groups.
That's a tough one, just because we don't have any more data. So the dashboard data, all the dashboard data doesn't come out next year till December 15th. So the only data we might have at that
That would
point
be,
possibly is
what's
our,
there's a disconnect between.
archive, what's that one when they don't release it yet?
But somebody.
You know when they don't release something, it's called.
Right.
But we still have goals, right?
Because right now, our outcome goals are directly are the goals you guys developed.
Right, okay.
So that would be something
Long
where we
range
can
facilities plan, right?
revisit
But also
goals, like
Mark's
LCAP goals with the board.
Mark's been given pretty regular.
We say, hey,
Because it's like, you have your goals, but that's not like.
And then
maybe we
that's
could
not,
find
it
a
should be like the message.
Right.
So I think it was that,
And I get that.
One-
I get that.
These
But
ones.
the
You're the
suggestion-
LCAP guy.
This is kind
This is my
of
first
review of
this is
his
I'm learning too here.
3-year plan, right? You know, because that's.
And then it goes to program planning, study session, based on goals, identify needs.
People aren't saying that.
That's good.
And maybe we don't have the current cast yet.
well, and what's
Because we can really won't wanna do that until we have, we wanna have all of our
I
dashboards.
don't know when that would
I'd
be
say
good.
like trying
So
to
by
figure
October,
out
we'll
the
have
way
our
that-
Maybe if I just put in there, you know,
Like our English language arts.
one or two facility
So,
updates.
yes, but we have it right now for last year.
Yeah, we
Where
have
to
that.
go next to be determined.
I'm
Yeah,
using
exactly.
that,
I just didn't apply
And
for it.
here.
is planning.
It just.
Because you can't just put it together in the next time, right? Because it's 3 years, it's a rolling 3-year thing.
Yeah, and every year you have to review the data, revise.
Oh, do you already, have you guys already revised the LCAP based on
That's what
that?
we're doing now. So for this new 3-year LCAP, all
Really, this is what Mark mostly does.
this is a brand new code makeup, so all of it's this 22, 23 dashboard data, monthly data.
But we have an update back in February. Is that it?
And the update though, that was based on this last 3-year, this LCAP we're currently working on.
Right,
I've been,
Yeah.
I've been waiting for it, I was assuming it was going to be, maybe it'll be different in this area.
LCAP public budget form, I don't understand.
And this is my last week, we checked for records, because we were always trying
So-
to actually.
well, the LCAP has a budget, right?
Records different. People stayed home, but they didn't. They might have been having practice, but they didn't make any babies.
When teachers say it's about.
There's a point where there's you ask for public input. You get to-
And we for long,
It's like.
We do that now, we have tons of business.
I think that's what it's meant by that. So before, the board, let's say March report.
she wants that
board,
way, but she can't.
and new plans being developed, that's public, there's public input on that. And then the draft goes to the board
PD day or
in
the
May,
early day.
it gets approved in June. That's kind of the reason for that.
She was great.
Not necessarily
I'm retiring.
Never came back.
doing the
It was
public
great.
input.
Everybody
Oh,
was excited.
that's
That's
right.
I might take some of this off.
It's like right now, we have a parent committee.
These have real detail oriented work, you might more big picture stuff,
Right.
Wow.
Teacher, classified.
They always got to stay in rural areas. My mom was really nice too, so we lived in Eureka for a while, and well,
So how does that,
right outside of
that get
Eureka.
reported to the board at some point?
And then.
That's some of that information.
No, I get it.
Is
That's
that-
all right.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good question.
It hasn't been thus far. It would be great. I mean, if that was like part of that LCAP update.
Say like, here's our feedback from our teachers, here's our feedback from our classified staff, here's what the parents are saying.
And I feel like thus far, again, we're in the middle of we're at the end of the year. So most of us have not been involved in the planning or development of an LCAP. We've all just been dealing with what has already been done, and getting updates there.
You know, it was sort
But I
of
think
like,
what we're talking about now is the development of
I like it, if you go to LCAP board
I think we
studies,
do a pretty good job of that.
That's a good way, so the idea is sharing the information is collective. And then you're getting broader, you're sharing what broader so when the board sees the draft, you can have an idea.
I like that.
The LCAP is an interesting story.
We don't address it.
so,
Started about
I
10 years
guess,
ago.
I
And there was a lot of activity.
that, you know,
Become very
that's
cumbersome. What's in
and so my
every
son
word
would
of the LCAP? You know, to have input times for the board.
I know
There's
like,
a workshop. Here's
Right,
information.
it's like we just aren't in the LCAP, I think the meeting I
Yeah, she's like,
framework to continue the cycle, we don't have to spend so much creative energy this week. And I like that, even if it's not a creative year for the LCAP, that we still have these moments where like,
I get really offended.
okay, well, because every year you go back into the action items, right? You identify like, data points, but also we need to look at these action plans, right? We do that every year.
I get it, but I
And,
appreciate that.
and making the board a part of that was great, and do
But I
that
get that. I didn't understand that.
every year.
Yeah, it's
Like,
awesome.
okay, let's, what have, you know, that, all the student groups, all the LCAP groups, they all meet. And I totally understand why the board is part of that, I get that.
Yes, I
But then
do.
all of that data is brought forth, and the board gets to see that, not just the final shiny product, you know, like, well, we talk to people, but like, you know, I'm a data nerd, I love to see like raw, what does it look like, what are the boots on the ground saying?
in my last district, we had our board, we basically called a board meeting. We were at high school. In their library. We were formal board meetings. We had a board, school board, we had admin and a teacher and classroom representative from the school side. And we had I guess you would call it a LCAP, kind of, basically looking at the data.
And I tried to explain.
And then actually looking at our board votes. And we actually did like 2 intro sessions with,
No, and so
Those
the
big
thing
groups.
about it was that
Anyway,
it was, I thought it was inclusive.
yeah, I like that.
It doesn't have to be that big, but it was representative, which
Yeah.
was,
I think,
and it was inclusive.
no, I'm talking about.
So what would be the steps to do that?
We would have the backwards map and probably do that, I'm guessing in November. That's what it is, like, that's what sucks.
Yeah, I know, but
I don't, that's why I'm having a hard
So-
time, because we did get Cassie data.
No, but I'm
And
talking
there's-
about all the rest of the data though. So I'm talking about the college career indicator,
Okay.
the suspension indicator,
Right.
the EL indicator. The only thing we would have would be the, and that's fine, ELA and math, that's fine. But we wouldn't have the rest of the rest of the data until December 15th.
We would be operating off of last year's data, and that's how the data comes in anyway, is the fact that
So we haven't.
whatever data hasn't been professionally new, we're operating off of just the last one, right? We're not expecting massive spikes or dips in any direction, right? I mean, we're hoping,
I'm hoping it, like,
in certain
I'm hoping
indicators.
it goes down, and like, our absenteeism, I'm hoping it goes down.
Right.
They're
But we
working
can
down, like,
still,
who's
you
doing
know,
what, or, you
I
know,
like November.
they're going down to
Yeah.
jobs and Vacaville to
I,
see
you know what,
schools
a lot of
there, so,
districts have done
yeah.
this, it's
So
kind of
we're
a placeholder
preparing
for each month. And you
to be able to
you
hit the
bring
ground running
it,
with the
if
rest
the
of it.
information's there, you bring it. If there's not more information that doesn't come in, so.
Right, you're
we don't-
operating on
We don't
the
get
old.
like 10
No.
reports
You
at
know,
the same
and
time.
I understand what you're saying.
I think I like middle
But,
ends
How
of
about
the
we-
town, so that they're accessible,
How about
so
we
whether
put
it's, you know,
LCAP
Park or
program planning here?
City High School or Bridge Street.
what day?
And I always think about that as Twilight School. Is there
What
something-
month?
and then
October,
coming
November?
North,
In
yeah.
November.
It
Wait,
will
don't we have a
yeah.
board meeting in November?
What are we gonna
We do, is we have holidays,
I think so.
So,
But that's when the
That's when-
results come back, or they come back in October.
that would be, they could publicly
Or so
release.
did your group do.
What's that, we're looking for
Oh,
numbers.
we actually got through it fairly quickly, and we had a nice conversation.
Publicly release
Yeah, I
is
like
next
working
year,
with
it's either
Londa.
December
First time we
first or
really had
December
to-
15th.
I said, I like
They
working
give
with Londa,
us,
it's the first time we had
early
time
release.
to team
It
up.
can't be public knowledge
Yeah.
because some of that data might not be correct. We have to go through when they give us the early release and we have to.
Did you
go through it.
identify some things on the?
And we're
Oh,
going-
we did, we
Because
identified
they pull our data directly from our areas, our
Londa as the board
information system,
member said some
and
things about the superintendent
we have to
evaluation
like look
process,
at
I said I was
what
gonna
they
keep my
pull
hands
and then go
back
back
from
to
that
make sure it's
part.
correct.
And then I talked about the layoff notification.
Okay,
We let the
and-
principals see the data, but I tell them you cannot
And
publicly release
about
it
sunshine
because
for
if
that,
we have to make any
for like,
corrections.
like, for the.
So you're saying to be a, this is akin to
Do you
the
have those
planning
dates in the
program study
contract?
session?
Yeah, so on this one, we would do, here are
I
three
like,
of those.
no, this year, they did their sunshine first,
Here's kind of like, here's our,
drive that
local,
a little
here's our
bit
data
more.
we have.
So I'd like
Yeah.
to bring it to the board and put it back, the onus back on the labor partners to respond to us.
So it's
Because
helpful.
usually, we don't want much to.
I mean, this is, the way they
So
have it
usually, we don't wanna
is
change
over
it,
2
so,
months.
you know, it's a,
Okay.
that
November
If
and
you're
December.
Yeah, but, you know, I think this year was
sorry,
a good year,
October,
next
November.
next year,
I think
I'll
that's
be
maybe
doing
that's
a
why
lot
they do
more.
that.
So it's like
I would say
And I'll be able
probably
to see
November,
what I
just
can
because
start
the,
what I can
your
do
data
find so that we can
is in all
operate,
cases.
you know, more.
Even with
effectively, or
CASP,
not even
they're not
necessarily,
super
but
early on
it's
that.
kind of smoothed out some bumps if you have any.
form of.
It's collective bargaining within your.
Girls that are getting.
Which is crazy, it's all one
As
time.
as one of
It's
my
showing
biggest goals.
practically
You
instantaneous.
can't just, you know.
And what happens is,
Some
we
negotiator.
have a area system, but all the data for the bachelor comes from something
It's
called
quite a
CalPADS.
job.
It is quite a job,
And
and one part, and sometimes I think it's fun,
CalPADS has
because a lot
certain
of times
reporting
it's just so
deadlines per
stressful.
year.
And,
And so
you know,
our biggest
it all
deadline
comes
is
down to
after
the
we have
dollar,
summer school
and also when
graduation.
you're making changes.
That's where we count the rest of our
Really don't
graduates.
understand the
And
implications
all that
of-
data,
I'm actually starting to write everyone
put in like
crazy on
these
that, I can't
spreadsheets
decide on that until I understand the
and
implications.
upload it to
Because I've
CalPADS.
just
And then we have to certify that data.
one time
Yeah.
too
It's
many.
huge, like
Well,
under.
there's so many unintended
That's a real
consequences.
resident, yeah, so it's the IT
Seems
office
like
and
that's a
it's
great
educational
Sounds
services that
great.
go together on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Like
part of
this
that,
goes in,
year, our
it's-
college curriculum is low.
it has, like, once they get something,
I
you're not
was
gonna
like,
get it
there's
out
no
of it,
way.
so.
And you know how I
And I
feel.
said, I
We
wanna
can
do
know
things
because we
that
have
are
so many
gonna
kids taking college
help our
courses.
teachers do their jobs
Because we have
more,
an
but I
astronomical
also need to be
number
able
of kids
to
doing it,
like
and so
operate
Maybe there's
and
some
manage
disconnect.
that's
those
in the
really
data
hard
transfer.
for-
Yeah.
And so that's some of the stuff we have to work on this year
you
is
know,
And I know there's
making
not
sure our
only
data
what
is
the
actually
cost,
correct.
what is being
What we're sending to CalPADS.
what is it,
Yeah.
what is
That's
it going to
huge,
be in the hands?
Yeah, and what
is
is-
it going to limit things like
Yeah, what an easy.
And so sometimes I won't even know the answer to that, cause
Okay, so, the program planning notes started.
but I mean, I can X, Y, and Z. So just making sure that we have those conversations and not, because we wanna get the TAs, like, they'll rush to say yes.
And then
But we had our first
Any of
market
you,
session,
we have the LTAP update, but LTAP
We'll
board
see.
study
I'm not
session in
gonna,
April.
pat myself on the back yet.
That would be the one
It's a
where we talk
process.
about
It's a huge
yeah,
process, and I have a great team supporting me.
what current feedback are we receiving from our
Yes.
stakeholders.
Okay, so
Greg and
it's on
Todd,
the ground.
have you kind of completed your?
Yeah, I think so.
We
Yeah.
solved the world's problem,
I
yeah,
love
we did.
creating.
No.
Yeah,
What's
see,
that?
that's
We solved
so-
the world's
that's
problem.
what-
Did you too?
See, I grew up.
That was a bonus.
Alright,
Maybe
so
some
that's
points
LTAP.
coming your way.
What?
Maybe some points coming your way.
Gold stars?
Millions, these are all
And
just.
I never
You
seen
know.
it.
I kind of a question. I'm looking at CSBA versus hours.
Assessment and accountability reports, smart
We have
balance.
a little more like kind of detail, I guess, or
Well, I went to
Federal
Federal
court.
things that have to happen, but they're not very,
That feels like,
I would say, impactful from the board, macro.
that feels
Okay.
kind of heavy.
Now we're just trying to, do you want like, on our calendar, like everything we have to get done there, or really kind of the impactful things that,
More impactful for the board, where the board really uses this
Talks
about
about
Right.
They don't need to know the nuts and
review
bolts of
CalPADS
it.
development data.
Oh, you do
And
a
what is that?
county.
Is it very
That's okay, like I got a GAN report I gotta do, but it's on here, but they don't care about that really.
Well, when do you present that data to us?
That, well, that's what I was saying. That's been around for
Huh?
30, 40 years.
No, that was all.
It just keeps moving around.
Yeah.
How fast are rates? She has one history moments.
Alright, I think that's helpful, but yeah,
Progress monitoring of
additions on
professional materials adoption
No big
cycle
deal.
process.
Oh, that's like when we do.
I grew up out in the country in Colorado.
Any of our textbook adoptions, any of our
New
new
curriculum.
course, and new course proposals, that's
And nobody ever
we use
thought
that as on board basis.
anybody would go out to that rate if they're gonna.
But ideally, you want to have
You
it.
have, but we still have like an every 5 year like turnover, right? We have to turn over all of the curriculum every 5 years,
No,
like,
it
we
depends,
don't?
it depends on the new framework.
Okay.
And then there's new adoptions.
Not to
Like
make
our
light
math
of it, I
has
mean,
to
it
do-
took some real
So
damage,
our
but
math doesn't have new
it
standards,
wasn't,
but they have a
it
new
was not
framework.
the same
And
concept.
right now, the publishers are working on
Making money.
making new texts.
Oh,
So we can't do a new adoption
And
and making money. Oh, yeah, that's writing.
You know, I can't take
I know,
on
golly.
an airplane.
So when they come up with the new adoptions, we'll have to do a pilot with
It's
three
made up
publishers before we can even start
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Some guy
Yeah.
a while
So,
ago.
Tino,
Friends-
you folks have you have like 10 times the amount of stuff we're doing as the others. But I think
You
we'll,
know, then.
if you'll just report on what you've done so far, everybody in
Oh,
the
then I'll
see
just
where.
put in what I want.
Okay, Kirsten's wish list.
That's how it works, you cut me short and I just do what I want.
Judicial review.
So what are we doing?
Okay, we are going to,
Water and some rock or something.
do a little group report. And so
Never be seen again for a long time. Like,
what we'll do is, we'll start with effective governance. So, let's look at the CSBA sample, and then we can, the
Yes.
group can kind of share what you think are the highlights there, things to maybe incorporate.
So, for me, I like it laid out the way it is. I think the only thing would be is, it's kind of laid out, but I think that what I had heard from the board one of these past years was, in January, right after the election, they do go to CSBA in December to the conference, but that there also be a new board member orientation that we do here to go over, just some of the stuff. That it be the new board member orientation, but if, the other board members wanted to attend, they could. That was just a suggestion to add that in January.
That's great. Did you do you do an orientation for board candidates?
I do, so
Yeah.
I reach out, I don't know then how many have ever taken me on it. I usually, but we do offer an opportunity to come in and, or have I ever, there's been once or twice, right?
You've always, when you congratulate them, you've usually offered the opportunity for them to come in and meet with you and
But that's after, he's talking about candidates, right, before they've
Right,
even
and I'm trying to
elected?
think, right, candidates, so
candidates, usually the county does open forums.
Yes.
But anybody that's ever asked to meet with you, you've met with.
yeah, I do remember meeting with candidates, I just
I
don't
don't think
know
that
how
you,
to.
candidates,
That's how it
because
goes.
there was a line there we weren't sure about.
You don't wanna get myself in. Yeah, so
No
yes.
trouble here.
Yeah, so that would be something I'd like to see, to
Okay.
add, to be able to answer questions and be able to extend that opportunity.
Great.
So I did like this structure.
Okay, did you talk about the setting direction? Why?
Yes, so the only thing was, again, like what was there, and the timelines was, it goes back to just, there was a request for attendance reports, so that punctuating, like at the start of the school, mid-year, after the winter break, and then at the end of the year, that there's also incorporated, it's not really direction, but it is kind of tight, but I didn't know where it fit, but the attendance
Well,
report.
you can do, whenever you have to turn in, we turn in ADA 3 times a year,
Yeah.
just the
That
ADA report
would be
is,
in time.
would be.
Exactly. So I just was
an
trying to,
indicator.
that's something we thought should be added, it's just where.
Right, okay, the question is, where does it fall?
Yeah.
Maybe whatever the ADA's done.
So we
No, in terms of,
typically,
in these
Oh,
boxes.
Yeah, does it go in finance, does it
Yeah.
go in student learning, where?
typically,
Yeah.
we're
It just needs to be
we're to adjust
in
that each year.
Right.
So, I just,
Because,
So, I guess from the,
So
what
what's
we've talked
what's
about,
happening is
easiest thing is maybe for you to share your notes with Laura.
Huh? I
Is
used
that-
mine too.
Okay,
She
so I mean,
used
it's
mine.
not- you don't have to feel like you have to get everything.
Thank you.
Right,
Good.
okay.
And she can read my writing,
Okay.
usually.
First if it's not one approved yet. So we're
Okay.
doing it, so this year we're doing it, we did it in November.
Tino and Kirsten, you're up.
We're just, we're gossiping.
We're talking about SIPSs.
So student learning achievement, what did you folks talk about and let's look at the CSB calendar.
Well, we focused a lot on LCAP because, my strength of beach ball is, you know, like we've, feels very like LCAP wise, the board is just along for the ride because we're on a 3-year LCAP rotation and it's already been decided, and so essentially we just get reported to, but we don't have any feedback or it's reported to us and we get updates, but it's a one-way, we're just getting information. It doesn't feel collaborative, like, well, why do we do this? And we're kind of like the new kid in school where the school's already been working on the project and we're just brand new. So we focused on adding a little bit more of the structure to the annual calendar, regardless of if it's a new LCAP year or not, that those are updated and there's conversations with that, just in general.
So Kirsten, because that's a good point, because it has actually felt that way from our point of view. It's like, how do we get you to, because it's, you know, because it's in here in terms of revising the draft LCAP, so it's the, how do we lay out, or how does, now Tino, present it, so there does feel like you have an opportunity to hear from what the educational partners are saying, and now you see it, how it aligns with your board goals, and so what,
Right.
we're trying to figure out, what would that look like?
That's what we were spending most of the time
Okay,
talking about.
discussing, okay.
Yeah, is how that would work on a new year on it and when the reports come out and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because that's a really interesting point, because now would be the point for you to hear about what the educational partners are saying.
Yes.
Here's where they're lining up, because by the time he gets to May, when he's finalizing it and it comes for review in June, it's like kind of
It's
buttoned
done.
up.
Yeah.
And so,
And then everybody gives me the stink eye if I'm like, well, why is this in there? And they're like, it's already done, just approve it. I mean, nobody says that, but I get it, because
Right.
it's already done a tremendous amount of work. So having the structure, but we're taking this time.
hearing about, right,
Right, and so in the initial one, there is that planning study session, and based on goals, identifying needs and that sort of thing. But also you'll notice in April, they have LCAP board study session and public input, and then they have in September, LCAP goal setting, identify desired outcomes for students, all student groups. Of course, these aren't just board, right, because you have all of your LCAP study groups, all of your collaborative, everything. So thus far, it feels like the collaboration is all happening out there, which is great, but then once it comes to us, we just go, okay, great collaborating.
yeah, so I think this
So,
study
but-
session would be good.
Yeah, but these ones, and getting updates on the boots on the ground feedback, like on the stuff that's going on. We're currently working on it. I feel like a rubber stamp when all we do is get the thing that's already been decided, or the thing that's already been, you know, and then it's like, okay, I guess it's all done, and then yeah. So,
Okay.
but so having these without going into so much stuff is just would be really helpful on the regular, and hearing that input and that feedback.
So remember, some of you remember that we looked at the Venn diagram the last time, and the board's responsible for kind of what happens and the staff's responsibility, figure out how it gets delivered. Wait, that's it. And so the board does have responsibilities in terms of understanding what the LCAP is, and it's the accountability plan for the district, unless you have another plan. The state realized that there weren't any accountability, there were very few in the whole state of California. And so 10 years ago said, everybody will do an accountability plan. But-
So, right, so Tina, from your perspective, you know, is April the LCAP board study session of public input?
Yeah, that's what we had, that's what we put.
Yeah, is that, cause I'm just thinking that's a perfect time,
Yeah.
right, to do that.
And I like the
that
idea
too.
of the program planning guide. So I was giving a brief example, and like I said, every school district does their operations differently. In my last school district, we would have a board meeting, we would go to a school site in their library, we would have an actual board meeting on a Tuesday. And we would have the school board there, one administrator from each site, one teacher from each site. I think, and then obviously we would have classified representation.
Mhm.
And we would do actual goal review and data review and goals and some planning at an actual board meeting. It would be a 3-hour marathon.
Is it a board meeting or a study session? It sounds like a study session.
Which is a board meeting.
Well, I know, but,
But
I know, but do you know
Okay,
what I
sorry,
mean?
I
So
meant
there's
that.
the
Study-
agenda,
study session.
there's
Yeah.
one agenda item and it's that.
It's
what I
that,
meant.
that's what it is.
Thank you for the clarification,
Yeah.
Scott Bentley.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a little question about that, because April's way too late to make any changes,
No.
right?
No?
That's not, well, don't you
Well,
have
if-
to
if we-
update your action plans every year?
So, I mean, the LCAP ideally, right, would be based on October, November,
Past data and,
discuss board priorities, right, you know, and the setting direction for the district, right, I mean, so we need to, for planning for next year, if we're gonna change our personnel, right, March 15th deadlines, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you really
Oh, I
need to.
see what you're
I
saying.
would say that
I
if
see what you're saying.
80% of LCAP is staffing,
Yeah.
I need you to make those determinations last month.
So that's why, I mean, and the LCAP is born out
That's
of
really
the board
fast.
priorities.
Considering the
So-
dashboard data doesn't come out until December 15th.
Right, so what they're saying is that that's why the timeline is clunky, cause when I hear that there's a procedural thing that needs to be followed, so the program people are thinking about it programmatically. So I think that the thing that is, cause what you would have to do is do a January study session to meet some other timelines, but that would mean you would be doing your
That would be better for
stakeholder
me.
input meetings in November and December, which
But,
is.
but then you'd also have to realize that all of this could be a moot point, second interim and then May revise. You know, to know what programs are you gonna be able to really
Yeah, but
keep
that's,
going.
that's getting into the details, I mean, if we get board priorities, get the goal setting, and then staff's gonna have to figure out how to get to
How to
those,
implement
how to
those.
implement those priorities on a limited budget, right? We
Right.
know our revenues are going down, but if the board can give us what's the most important priorities, then the LCAP's gonna be built to those, right?
Yeah, because
So-
you can't have a study session without having part of your educational partner meetings having, because that's what you're gonna be reporting to the board in terms of, here's our data, but the data won't be here till December. Here's the stakeholder, cause you have to share the data with the stakeholders, and so the timing is odd, but I hear what you're saying, Scott, you're feeling like April's too late.
Oh, I mean, the budget is pretty much done, it's almost done, I mean,
Like I said, we're
it's not
probably a
happening.
fiscal person, or an HR person, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So
So
I
we
think,
just, that's what we just
I
need to
was
figure out.
supporting you on that.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's-
I agree, yeah.
You know, it's like, I know it's odd,
So,
but.
yeah, no, but Tino, I think that that's the thing to think about, is how you would structure that, because I think the concept of a study session is a good concept, it's
Yeah.
just where do we do it and how do we do it?
Well, it's almost a little bit of an explanation of how this all supports what the board set as goals, right?
But to tag on to what Kirsten has been saying, is that we've gotta be able to present the data that says, yeah, this is working, you know,
Yeah.
we're doing this and we're spending $1 million on it, and it's working because here's the evidence in our data. So I think it's that combination of timing wise, but January kinda seems like the sweet spot. I'm just suggesting, but we'll figure that out.
The study
Well,
session?
yeah, for that, program, is that the program planning study session, right? So the one we had listed in
Oh, okay.
October.
But-
But it's always gonna be like a lagging indicator, that was one of the things we were talking about, cause we have different data points.
Yeah.
And I know there's the big one and that sort of thing, but, there's always different data coming out, right? And then you have your SIPSAs and all of that, and so, but,
It's always gonna be built on last year's data, right?
Right.
So, I mean, yeah.
Not really, not until we get the chips installed inside their brains.
So we're working on that.
I know.
Well, and I think, Tina, that may be why also is that, our the push for us to really define very good local indicators, because, our local indicators, if they're ongoing frequent assessments, it's gonna be more relevant than a once in a year in the,
So you're talking iReady?
I read
It could be
the
anything.
writing performance task we have.
Okay. So there's always data
Right.
to be, culminated.
And they are
Hate to let-
actually coming back with earlier timelines for the CAT and dashboard too.
Okay.
Right.
So
Okay.
Because I hate for CASP to be the bully.
it unfortunately is in the LCAP. That's one of the biggest metrics we have to report out on the LCAP is the CASP data.
Our CAS, our
And that puts us in
data,
different
yeah.
differentiated
Yeah.
assistance for our county.
Yeah, okay. Well, my point, oh yeah, so our main conversational component was to create that framework for the process. I mean, as far as for a sophomore board member, I'm sophomore now. Or like, it sure would feel good to be able to pass on processes and policies to the next and the next and the next, that it's just like, not that the goals stay the same, not that the methods stay the same, but we have this machine whereby we know where we are in the process, and we know what our role is in it. Heretofore, it feels very hippie to me, like very, I know it's not, but I'm just saying, as a
From your
sophomore,
perspective.
from my perspective, it feels very like,
Just kind of
one of those currents at like a nice hotel where you get in the current pool and you just sit in a inner tube and it just floats you along and you're just like, okay, well, you already did it, so I guess I'm approving it.
Well, this is exactly why this is an important document.
Yeah.
Is these conversations, because there's no point in talking about a new program if the budget is already basically set for the next year.
Correct.
So how does this all kind of fit together?
Right.
And so I think you've had some great suggestions, and you just realize that it's not only just our line, it's how that fits in with budget and how it fits in with HR.
Right.
And so it all ties together.
And our instructional materials, adoption, recommendations, that sort of thing, it's not like at this time, it's just as they happen, so that will come.
When that went, but decided by the state what they're doing next, because
Right.
it's, the next adoption is math, and then ELA's next,
Right.
and then, right.
But it would be nice if, just saying for those that are here, if they are put on the board meeting at a time where if there are additional questions or concerns, like the last time, when there was concern brought up, and it was like, well, if you don't approve it this week, like, it's done for next year, it's gotta be this week, it's like, it feels like it's constantly a drop dead. Where if we delay it to get more information, then we put everybody out of that opportunity.
Well,
So,
I think that Kirsten, hopefully the calendar will help avoid that, because we're gonna put it on there sooner so that it doesn't feel like that.
okay. And is that on here now? Cause I don't see it for adoption. Is that something we should add?
The math one?
The instructional materials, that sort of thing. It's on April, and I think the one I'm referring to was back in December of 2022.
Let me ask you a question. Does Meet and Consult, do they have a timeline as to when they meet? So it seems to me that right after Meet and Consult meets,
Oh, okay.
a report to the board as to, that would be a good time to let the board know, these are the curriculum ideas that are coming along, and here's the materials, so that you can have a chance to
Right,
look
cause
at
you
it.
have Meet and Consult a calendar, and I think it's like, you do one early
Whatever
fall, you do one
Thursday.
in December, cause then you do course proposals that come forward at a
Right.
certain timeline.
Anything curriculum and CNI related, PD, course proposals.
Right.
So math adoption EPS, are they going away from integrated?
No.
Oh, damn.
No, this is just a textbook adoption. they basically came out with a new, with an updated, not updated standards, but updated frameworks. And so based on those updated frameworks, the publishers are working right now on developing some new, textbook curriculum.
Plus two is always gonna be.
So-
cool.
Amen. So are those cyclical pretty regularly?
Well, and everything was delayed, has been delayed, so when is the adoption? Is it 25, 26?
They said 25, 26, but it was supposed to be 24, 25 also, so
Right.
we're still waiting to hear from, the county.
So once the state announces that it's going to be an adoption year, we'll know that and we'll be able to then backwards map it of here's where the date has to be adopted, here's where we'll do those types of conversations.
Like even if the meet and consult, even if there's a step in that process where it's like prior to the ultimate sign and then you want the board's rubber stamp, if there was like a part in there where it goes just as maybe not on action items on our board meeting, but it's in information reports,
Yeah.
the books are available, the materials are available, so that we know coming down.
And here's the feedback from the meeting.
And here's the feedback, like not just the
Yeah.
report, and
Yeah.
then please
Okay.
pass it.
So once that's out, you would backwards map it on the calendar.
Yeah, and we would probably wanna look at doing a pilot with those, possibly with those textbooks.
Yeah,
So, Kirsten, that's exactly why we have a calendar.
I love it.
Because you identify the decision points,
Yes.
and then you backwards plan
Right.
to get there. Alrighty, let's go to finance facilities.
And we did nothing on judicial review, by the way.
I know that.
We did 0 things on that.
Scott's the driver.
So, actually, we had a good discussion, there's a couple things that I think from CSBA that would work well if we put it into our calendar. So as I'm looking at that, in February, there's a suggestion from CSBA to, board sets budget year priorities. So again, this all kind of goes back to, the board priorities, the LCAP priorities, cause they all translate into the budget, right? So, I'm not even sure if it's setting or just reviewing how the budget's gonna support what we already have as our goal, our board priorities and the LCAP priorities, but.
So would that work is if Ed Services was doing the LCAP kind of workshop that we just talked about, that would also be a time when finance would do that?
Well, I think that's probably the same meeting, right?
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, I agree. It's
The
exactly,
same board meeting.
and it's gonna be very preliminary, but I can give a look, yes, the board meeting. You're teasing, okay.
I am teasing you. Yeah, so that would make sense that would be, you
Yeah.
would line those up.
Yeah, and that early, all I'm gonna have is a preliminary information of what the governor's given us, but we can say, hey, LCAP's down by $3.5 million, that's a reality this year, going
Yeah.
into next year, right?
Well, I have
So-
to say, just like from a customer perspective, like that first meeting that you did with that overview of the budget and everything was extremely helpful and beneficial for me. So, and I would, and felt
I
like,
don't even remember what I did.
but I know, and that's what's important.
Take the compliment.
Just take the compliment,
She
don't
has notes in her binder.
I do, I can pull it out,
She
I
will.
can, I'll pull it out, yeah, but I love that, I love, I know we won't always have new board members, right? God willing, the creek don't rise, I mean, every year, because there's, election, so I know there won't be that study session in the sense of like, welcome to the board, guess what, this is the
Right.
process. But I think, like you all were talking about, where you are reviewing the study session as far as the board policies, and I don't see a downside, not that I'm a meeting monster, but I don't see a downside to having that annual like dust off the policies, and also the procedures, cause we've talked about like wanting to be more procedural, and we have not been yet. And the finance, just kind of like a cleanse, like, all right, it's been crazy, let's just all remember, and are we all on the same page with regards to all of those things?
Casserole, huh?
What?
You said a cleanse, I was just thinking.
I know, like just, it's like January is the new, everybody likes to,
Fresh start.
but we just like to anyway, I'm hijacking.
That's good. So, The other thing that we thought would be a good add is, so I say this, you know, when I kind of look at the budget cycle, but in May, so in January, the governor gives us up his plan for the year, and in May, they kind of finalize what they think the final plan is gonna be.
Right.
But I can, report that out, it's more, at that point, at least give you a heads up, hey, you know, I think I've done it in like a Friday letter in the past, but I could, whether it's a Friday letter, whatever it is, give you an update on what's the reality of how we're gonna be building our budget, in May. You're gonna get the budget 4 weeks later, I mean, it happens that quick, but at least you have a heads up of when you see the budget coming to you, if we had to make some adjustments, it's because there was an adjustment at the May revise.
Right, so I was gonna say, but even with the May revise, sometimes it's not final and what you, your best prediction based upon the assumptions you heard at the May revise.
Definitely
And
allergies.
sometimes the budget changes again.
Oh, it does, and when that kind of comes around, it's actually on here too, we do a 45-day update in August, because again, we approve our budget, then the state approves their budget, and then we gotta, you know, report back to you, well, you know, things change,
I
so.
like that. No, I like that cycle.
So that was kind of the finance stuff, and then we also have facilities, and I actually, you know, I think Mark Button has just done a fabulous job of when he does reports and updates, and he keeps, you know, I would say everybody updated on our deferred maintenance.
So that is the question I had on the facilities, cause it was kind of generic, and so
Yeah.
do we wanna punctuate updates with facilities at
Master
points in time of the year?
So I put months to be determined, so I thought I'd work with you,
Okay.
because it's probably be on a lighter board meeting, that might be, you know, smart to do that on. We really have the long-range facilities plan that we've worked all year long, it's a big plan. We can take a look at that, that might be one meeting, and then a second meeting is, what Mark does is really a deferred maintenance plan.
Yeah, cause I know, and so what I really like is he does, we kinda do a early fall review, and he does an overview of all the summer projects and what got done during the summer, and then you kind of, then what's gonna happen into the next few months, and then he comes back and does kind of a final report at the end of the year. So he gives them the, here's what we did all summer, here's all the things, and then he then does a, kind of a spring one, that here's gonna be our work for this summer. So it's sort of like
Yeah.
your deferred maintenance thing you just did.
I think we can talk about that, I mean, since we are trying to look bigger picture with the long-range plan, you know, maybe we just have one on deferred maintenance and one on the big plan, because that's a big deal, that we need to focus on if we're gonna make any progress, right? So,
Makes sense.
I don't know, we can talk
Okay.
through it, but that was our initial thoughts on that, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. To be able to plot those on a facilities
Right.
calendar would be great, and you can always change them around, but people begin to see, wow, this is a big job you have, and you're holding yourself accountable for managing the facilities you have and the resources, so.
Yeah.
Great way to put that.
And on that note, we haven't had a facilities meeting in a while.
Well, we haven't
Oh,
had committee
committees.
meetings,
Committee.
because we still haven't done board priorities yet. Right?
I'm looking at you trying to remember what the conversation was about committees.
It's been a while.
It was.
Because it was, well, first we have to set board priorities, because there were 18, and then it was, well, that was crazy, and, we're not doing that again, even though I understood why you all did that, totally get it, but then it was like, we can't do board priorities until we do our vision and our mission and our vision.
Well,
So we did mission and vision, and then it was like, well, we can't do board priorities, so we do calendar, so we're doing calendar now. But we still have to,
do the priorities, and the thing about the priorities there, again, that was a model of, and that was at a time where
no,
we
I
were
totally understand the
getting to
17.
cuts, and so I think the thing about it is now you've got your 3 board goals, which are gonna drive the LCAP, which
Right.
it is your priorities, so, I'm trying to figure out. So, I would just say we stick with the committees as they are now, cause they fit in all the categories, there's nothing on there that didn't match.
Well, except I signed up for like 3 committees, I've never been contacted for any of those meetings.
Well, cause they really aren't having any of those committee meetings, so that's what
Yeah,
you're,
I'm on
that's what,
graduation committee.
Me too.
Yeah.
Hasn't,
right,
unless somebody's asking for a change in graduation requirements or something like that,
Mhm.
they're probably not gonna meet. There are committees that are formed but don't necessarily have a need to meet.
Right.
Unless there's an issue pressing. So,
Well, and I think that that's where I know we're bird walking, but I think that that's where the clarity of, if you're gonna have committees, what's the purpose of the committees? Because I get know that it's frustrating because, we haven't had a technology committee. And it's like, well, what's the purpose of the committee? Because, there was a lot of committees, and so it's really what's your intent. If you like to have committees, what is the information that the committees will be sharing and the intent?
Well-
Yeah, objectives.
I always thought committees were, with having attended 0 committee meetings, this will be very educational for everybody. But I always thought the purpose of committee meetings is to get more into the weeds, right? So that it's not like, 14 people standing around on a Tuesday night at 9:00 at night, not, and considering all the data and all of that. That was what I thought. But am I wrong?
I'll be honest with you, so, I don't fully understand, our committees, and this is, I think, a board philosophy, so, it's whatever the board
Right.
wants to do. But, my personal belief is that if it's, if we need to go deep on a subject, why isn't the whole board involved in that? And, if we have to have a work session on something, why isn't the whole board involved in that? Because the board member shouldn't be getting into the weeds, I think that's what we're talking about, right? So, but.
Well, and that was what started to get uncomfortable with some of our committees, and I'm gonna use HR as a perfect example. There were 3 members of the HR committee of the board, and I felt like they were giving direction on HR issues, and it wasn't coming back to the full board, and that was where I was like trying to understand what was the purpose, because I was not the superintendent who formed all these committees, and I was always trying to understand what's my role on this committee and what am I supposed to do with the information that I take from the committee I facilitate, like grad committee. So it was a discussion about graduation requirements and
In the,
it was
in the
also.
context
changed
of
the
the current
graduation
post-secondary expectations as set forth by the workforce, career, and college expectations. So this is our committee list as I received it in my binder. Greg.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
But like, for example, I signed up for, school safety, right, which we just got the school safety, the publicized, the public one, right? And it says to review with a proactive stance on all emergency plans, security issues on campus, and prevention. So when, again, kind of just going back to the whole LCAP without beating a dead horse, but we get the whole thing and it's like, here it is, it's done, and here's the presentation. And then we're like, okay, 144 pages, which is fine. I totally get what Scott's saying, like, don't get in the weeds. But also you don't give us the emergency plan. You don't publish the emergency one, which we should all be terribly interested in. The like what we're doing for lockdown or active shooter drills or what is that? Even though they're confidential, and I totally appreciate that. So,
But see, that's where it got muddy for us as staff members. Kirsten was, so 3 board members who sit on that, cause you can't have a quorum, and so you get the information, but they don't get the information. So it's
Right.
like, how do you, that was what we were trying to navigate, is if we had a committee.
and now
how was it-
nobody gets the information. We only get it when it's done.
No, because the plans were available for review, so if you want to see the nuts and bolts, they were available for review. You saw the thing that went public for the rest, so there was so they were available here in full detail, right? Yeah, so I think that's some of the things we need to clarify just operationally.
I think the operational is one of the things that we need to, as a group, work on. Because I think that there's a lot of times where you guys are putting in a lot of work and then you report to us, but we're completely oblivious to the work that's going in until we get that final report. And then we're asked to
Yeah.
either approve or not. So, I totally get what
Mhm.
Kirsten's saying, cause sometimes I do feel like we're just kind of a rubber stamp factory here. And I think, we don't wanna micromanage, I know that was a favorite
Right.
word of a previous board president,
Ew.
but, I don't have any intention to micromanage
No.
what you guys do.
No, but like the safety thing. I
But
mean,
I would
there's
like to
things
know
I feel it should be
what's going
Done.
on.
that haven't been, and I would like to put some input on that, just what I'm saying, from my standpoint, from working at a certain school and doing and stuff. Something that was promised that didn't
So I
happen.
think that might have been helpful in terms of the process of development of the safety plans in terms of the committee coming back
But if
together
it's on the
with templates.
calendar, preparing new safety plan on a month, then we kinda know it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Know
And if it's a
coming.
closed session thing,
It's not.
but, well, if it's confidential, I don't know how that works, but we can't and shouldn't have, I'm
That's why you
100
can't have a quorum. You know, you're just a member of the committee, you're not
right,
in
I-
your capacity as a board member.
So I think that is a good discussion, and that's where Scott, I think it's clarifying you as a board in terms of if we're gonna have committees, the intent of the committees, how does the rest of the board get the information, because it can't just be, because that's what it turned into, 3 board members represented the board and were giving us direction on what to do, whether it was HR or facilities, and that's
And
where
the
it
whole
got.
board didn't necessarily
Yeah,
agree with
and
the
then it
3
was,
members.
right, and then we would do it, and then it was like, well, how come, who decided this, and it's like, well, the committee did. That's where it got awkward, especially,
Okay, so now-
there you go.
If you have less, you can't have 1 or 2 or 3 board members directing the superintendent or staff to do something. You have with the.
I was
Yeah,
not the
that's what it's
superintendent, I was Tina.
But then would you agree, I think, if I'm hearing everybody correctly, like, I 100%, and I think we are all in one accord on not being micromanagers and not getting in the weeds, that's not our role. But, and, yet at the same time, is there a happy go-between being micromanagers, and here's it's already done, just approve it, and it has to be approved tonight, otherwise,
Yeah, and I think that's,
there
Kirsten,
will be
that
weeping and
awkward
gnashing of
thing
teeth.
of, I'm trying to, figure out a way to, cause what I'm hearing is when there are big things like that, how do you keep updated regarding process, or, so it's not just a slam dunk, here's the big document and now read it and try to make sense of it.
There's
You know
like
what I mean?
Right.
like when you're, like Shelley knows, when you're writing a big
Right.
term paper, there are several drafts, right? And it's great when your professor takes a look and goes, okay, well, I would reformat this, and it would be nice on major items where there was, if it's not in the action, right? On the board meeting, there are reports, right, where we get to ask questions, where it's like temperature taking or whatever. Like, there's no action needed here, we don't need to vote on anything, but there still is that, like, the committee of stakeholders have met, and we are reporting to you kind of what our findings are as we finalize whatever. I'm not saying everything, but important things, like.
But if you went to the committee meeting and I had a question, it's like, okay, why are we doing it this way? You could answer it, and it would be totally okay in a board meeting as long as it's in that informational section. That wouldn't be a violation of anything, because we're just seeking information and helping to devise a plan
Right.
for moving forward.
Right.
And you're not a, when you're sitting on that committee, like I'm sitting on the graduation committee, whatever. I'm not sitting there as a decision-making
Right.
board member, I'm just sitting there as a committee member, gathering information and putting in my input as just a person, not a board member directing. Then I can report it back and you guys can ask me questions, and then I can take that back to the rest of the committee that didn't come to the board meeting. Does that make sense? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a couple of things in terms of we should need different from another group here, but the list of committees, it sounds like that's part of history, that maybe putting on a board agenda, let's review these committees, do we need them? And if we don't need them, we shouldn't have them, and where people feel like they're on something, then they're thinking, I'm not doing anything. So I think that's one issue. The other is, it's really clear that the one value of a board planning calendar, if the safety plan has to be approved in November, then you backwards plan it again, so the month before, 2 months before, saying this is where we're going with it. Do you have some comments, or do anybody wanna see this before?
Kind of like our board
it goes to
policy
press?
review, right?
Right.
You do your first read and then you
Yeah.
finalize it.
Right.
That might be a kind of a good way to do
And
some of
especially-
the big stuff, right? You
Right.
know, yeah.
Especially because of nerds like me, because I know I bust your tail all the time.
You did.
I totally do.
You guys are funny.
And I don't love that. I really am not that person. But she lives in my head, spread free. But especially because I don't because I don't understand things. And I have no problem letting everybody know, I had no idea what you just said. I have no problem with that. But technology is one of those things. As a committee, right? Like, I don't know, because that's one of those things, again, where like the board meeting comes around and it's like, we need $3.1 million for Chromebooks 1-to-1. And I think I understand it. And then it's like, now we're doing the 20% replacement plan. And I'm like, so where it feels very like, again, here's all the stuff, and I don't feel like I know what technology's overarching, and I know Mark Button did the like classroom of the millennium or whatever. Mark had a great name for it. I'm sorry, I totally butchered it. But like, then we just get these things like smart boards, and it's like, okay, well, what is I don't want to get in the weeds, but like when we talk about the atmosphere of the classroom and the learning and the high end goals of our classroom and our community, it's a collaborative, it's a vibrant, it's allowed, and all of us in this room agreed that COVID's way of learning was wretched, and we never want to go back to, like Cloris was talking about earlier, being alone in your room with a computer. Like, this is not good, and I don't want to replicate that, and we talked about that before. I'm just preaching to the choir, I'm sorry, but you're fun. And like in our classrooms where we have like all these lines of kids all alone with headphones on a computer and not loudly conversing and learning and collaborating and questioning and conversating. And we're spending a lot of money on the screens and stuff, which I understand are books now. I understand that they are taking the place of textbook, but what I'm saying is just that if we have those more overarching moments where we do have those bringing them into what we are wanting, then you won't have annoying me in the meeting going, so what is this screen we're buying?
Kirsten,
Sorry,
we're gonna move on.
please.
She had a lot of coffee today.
Dayquil.
How are you when you're feeling good?
Oh man! Ouch, Robert. Ouch. Ouch. It's good. I can take it.
There goes
I
my gold
appreciate
star.
you.
No.
But I
Alrighty,
do
so
think that works in
yeah.
terms of major plans, whether it's, the SIPSAs or the safety plans, is that we backwards map it. So here's the deadline on the calendar, and so there's an opportunity for something to occur, whether it's a committee or something, but before that,
Yeah.
for there to be an understanding of what it is and the whys and the whats. Okay, that makes sense.
I think and
I like that.
your request is very clear in terms of
Yes.
the backwards planning provides the opportunity to ask questions before the final product comes. And
Correct.
everybody's.
And I
on board
think
with
and I don't see this micromanaging as much as I
No.
see this board really wanting to understand what
Right.
we're doing, not trying to get in the weeds, just trying to understand why we're doing what we're doing so they can ask questions.
Great.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Little time check, it's 7:30, we're committed to finish at 8. So we'll give you your opportunity to report out on human resources and collective bargaining. And then we'll do kind of a wrap up. We have evaluations to do, and then we'll conclude, so go for it.
Well, I mean, knowing when the layoffs are coming would be great to be on here, to know to prepare for that, because, I mean, my phone started blowing up, which I'm like, cool. We talked about the layoffs. Then I asked, talking to Cloris, to me, she needs, I want her information, what's gonna help her do her job better, you know what I mean, and timeline. So like she had said, moving the sunshine to October maybe, to start sunshine.
Yeah, start sunshine in October,
October,
just trying
you
to
know.
get ahead of things, like even with the layoffs, even though on the calendar here it's in March,
Oh,
but I'd wanna bring, I'd wanna bring it in 2 months
Okay.
beforehand, or at least
Yeah.
6 weeks beforehand, maybe not 2 months, 6 weeks maybe.
I don't even see it, where is it?
Which one, late, sunshine?
Sunshine.
No, we wrote it in, because,
Oh.
so that's for.
It's too general, they're.
Yeah, so for
collective
collective bargaining, it says be familiar with the district processes, maintain confidentiality, establish parameters for negotiations. I'd wanna establish those parameters sooner and get ahead of it.
Well, we actually here, on the district, one, have it in June, so,
June's fine too?
yeah.
Where
I
do
mean,
you-
it doesn't
where-
have,
Where's the district one?
the blue one.
Oh.
The blue one is the one we started
Okay.
to draft.
All right, so sunshine, yeah, let's leave it there.
There
I'm
you
okay
go.
with that, yes,
That's
thank you,
good.
you had my
That's-
back
that's
during,
good.
thank you.
That's good, because,
Yes.
you know, what's gonna make her job
Right.
easier if we have to, sometimes you put, anyway.
So it's there.
Mostly the layoffs,
Right, so that would be.
So we added layoffs, and, I mean, the notification to staff is on March 15th, but like I said, I want to bring it back 6 weeks early, and if you remember, that was our initial plan this time too. So if we brought it back in the last week of January, or this, I guess, the last meeting of January for the board to review would be good,
Okay.
yeah. And then you keep the March 15th and the May 15th things there
I'm
too,
not
but.
sure how realistic that is, but we can talk about it, and what I mean
Well, I
by that.
agree.
Because, in January is when we get the, governor's, budget update, and layoffs often have a lot to do with what the budget's looking like, so I don't know, between the mid-January when we get the budget update from the governor, we may then have to go process, okay, if we're reducing, what do we reduce, and that's a heavy lift.
So through CSB, I was looking at a lot of the information, because so many districts, many did layoffs, and so most of them I was seeing did their resolution of layoff in February, and as preparation for the March 15th.
As I said, the last meeting in January or the first meeting in
Yeah.
February. But then, the reason why I said the last week in January is because we only had one meeting in February, so if we do that again,
Yeah.
I can't wait to the second meeting.
And it's not a heavy lift on me, to be honest with you, it's a heavy lift on you guys, because it's, I mean, I'm gonna say, the budget's this, guys, we gotta do something, I mean, it's all of us, but, I mean, you know,
Well,
it's
because that pushes him, because we come right off of
Yeah.
the winter break, and then he's having to do what in order to get that, to
Yeah.
get to that,
it's
so.
a process.
It's
Yeah.
it's
We just
dominoes,
need to-
which is why I was trying to get,
And,
yeah.
and maybe it is that we don't do just one meeting in February, we do 2 meetings in February regardless because of this new law regarding March 15th, it might
Right.
have to be.
right, and that's what we have to do, that's
Yeah.
what we have to do.
Yeah.
We signed up for it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I don't think we actually decided for one meeting in February because of us.
Right.
We
No.
decided that for,
It's not that, it was just that's the impact of one meeting in February,
Right.
I'm not faulting it,
No,
I
I
But
think
it
it's,
comes-
there's
it's an
a new
important
break,
time.
but
Yeah.
doesn't, we've always been able to, we've always met in the past, even when school was out, if there was a meeting
Right.
scheduled, we had the meeting,
We
even
should,
though it was a
yeah.
break,
And it's a non-issue for next year.
there you go.
Yeah, there's no February.
There you go, no, there is a February break, it's just not
Right,
in the
it's
meeting
not,
time.
it doesn't affect our meetings,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
any other comments for?
well, there was some stuff
Oh,
that she
yeah,
added
we-
about that I said I'm gonna.
Which I don't know, and I don't know how, I don't know, because you guys have finalized the goals, the superintendent's goals and success indicators, mid-year progress report on goals. And it's mostly you, honey, but.
Yeah, and it coincides with, your self-evaluations
Uh-huh.
and my evaluations and their evaluations, yeah.
I think anything in the superintendent's evaluation just should reflect what's in your contract in terms of, there's probably timelines in terms of reporting and everything, so.
Yeah.
Very good. Alrighty, anything, this is the whole purpose of a calendar, a board plan calendar, is that it kind of lays out what decisions you're supposed to be making. And then you backwards plan so board members feel they're understanding what the issues are when it comes to make a decision. And so when you say, I'm voting for this, you really have a good feeling that you understand what it is and why you're
I
voting.
love this for staff, because it helps them also know what lies ahead.
That's right.
No,
And
100%.
It actually helps us kind of organize our work a
Backwards
little bit,
back.
too.
Yeah, I think it's a good document, because everyone knows and knows what the expectations are. I
And,
like it.
and it's,
What,
No.
what expectations are, is it?
so hats off to all of you, because this doesn't happen in a lot of places in terms of the board committing to meeting with senior staff or senior staff feeling like they can meet with the board. So this goes a long ways to kind of helping the communication and the trust and respect that you need to be successful. So one of the things, one committee, and I know, let's assume you have no committees, and you say, start from scratch. do we need what do we need a committee for? And I kind of propose that. One of the things I hope you would think about is having a board planning calendar subcommittee. And it could be the board president and the superintendent, it could be two board members, it could be whatever you want it to be, but that just kind of monitors this and takes a look at it and based on, well, that last meeting, we could have done something a little different in terms of schedule, or maybe we could do a mid-year update to, so that's just something, when you're talking about committees, it's in many places, it's the board president, the superintendent, kind of, but, so the idea is that this should be fluid, it should adjust to the times, if something doesn't make sense, change it, it's yours. And just because it's on CSBA's sample, you may wanna do it or may not wanna do it, so. But I think you've made some great progress in terms of, what do you think, Laura? Did we do pretty well?
I think we're doing well. I like the idea of the first read on important documents.
Now your challenge will be is making it fit on pieces of paper that I can read.
Some people don't worry about 2 pages, it can go as long as it needs, you
Yeah.
know. It's just the idea, it's your document,
Yeah.
it shows up on every board agenda at the end, board planning calendar.
Right, to review.
Say,
Yeah.
yep, this is what's
I like
coming
that.
up, any questions on that, are you ready to, you need something else before that, so. Alrighty, so, let's, before we kind of do a wrap-up, evaluations and all, any kind of general comments or comments you want to make before we move into wrap-up phase? Alrighty.
So, well, I do, so, we are scheduled to be back, and the topic in May is about the board's self-evaluation, correct?
Okay, so looking ahead, we had scheduled May 2nd as the next workshop.
Right.
The one we did not have was gonna focus on the board planning calendar. And so this was moved to this meeting. And so the next meeting, we would look at the governance handbook and possibly of having a board self-evaluation.
So the thing about it, so may I make a suggestion to the
Yes.
board, is that the governance handbook was just, we went through that at the start of the school year, so it's been revised. But correct me if I'm wrong, the self-evaluation component has not been completely clear, because this is, previous board sometimes didn't wanna do it. It's so, whatever the tool will be, because that was also the discussion, what tool will be used, and when will we do it, and then what do we do with it, so I felt like the board was asking for some direction on that topic, am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Tina, can I have you take one and then pass it along?
I'm gonna do this to them.
Yes, so I'm gonna collect your notes if that's okay.
I didn't write on mine.
So board self-evaluations. In a sense, we did that tonight. We asked you to look at what are we doing well at looking at the effective governance system. It can be simple, it can be complicated, it can be thorough. CSBA recommends that you do at least one a year, and it's often done towards the end of the school year. It can be done anytime during the year. What's going around the room right now is, I don't get royalties if you use the CSBA one. The cost is $300, but this is one possible format. So the way this works is that there's about a 3-page form that can be filled out electronically. If you decide to use the CSBA self-evaluation survey, you, as a board member, would receive electronic version of this form. You respond to maybe 50 different items. Do you think we're doing a good job with this? Is this something, do you think we should improve on this? And so you complete it, you send it back to CSBA, and then CSBA will do a summary, and they'll show areas of agreement, areas of disagreement, and it's pretty clear when you see it what the top priority should be. I did this with Beverly Hills, I don't think they'll mind me quoting them, about 8-9 years ago, and at the time, board was very divided, and when the evaluation committee came back, it was really clear they didn't have any agreement on unity of purpose of all things. So kind of, well, maybe we need to back up and really kind of focus on a big picture thing. So it's one tool. It's fairly easy to complete. The summary comes back, and then I thought we could make that one of the where we would spend a lot of the time at that main meeting. So that's, you know, it's your choice in terms of that's something that you'd like to do. And you're also missing 3 board members that may have an opinion about that. So I don't know what, I do have to tell you, I know Shelley can't make May 2nd. I'm waiting to hear when I get my hip surgery. And I hope it doesn't conflict with that, but there may be some, we kind of arbitrarily picked May 2nd out of the blue. And I don't know if we, you know, it's up, I don't know what your thoughts are, Doreen, in terms of leaving that date open a little bit and making it later. A lot of times, board self-evaluations can even be after the school year is over.
Correct, I
So-
think it's just a matter of, I just get nervous because they have a board policy related to their self-evaluation, and so I just want to, again, whether it's this document or another document, just, or, you know, whether it's formal or casual, just making sure that there's a process, but yeah, it doesn't, and I think May 2nd was just, there was a survey of, at that time, who could be there, is that right, Laura, you surveyed?
Correct.
Yeah, and if it is after the school year, that's fine too. And I guess that, I mean, I guess, what,
Should we
I
do
guess,
another
should
survey?
I ask, you know, cause there are 3 board members absent, is it, you know, do you want to use this as just try it one time and see how it works for you all and makes decisions afterwards?
It doesn't really matter to me, I've always kind of had a hard time understanding, to some extent, the group self-evaluation. Because I've seen those types of things where it's basically just, let's pat ourselves on the back for how wonderful we are. And I don't think that's its intended purpose. So, I kinda like the idea that an outside entity would, evaluate our responses and give us some feedback as to, okay, you guys are really solid on this idea, but on this idea you couldn't be further apart, and here's some suggestions. So,
I like the third party idea. But looking at their sample also, I feel like one of the benefits of what we used for Doreen's evaluation was there was a place for input, like you could say
Comments.
specific. It was like you get a 3 and you're like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, the comments
You know,
for me are always really helpful.
those are almost infinitely more important than like
just a number.
except for seeing like, yeah, the trends, like, oh, well, everybody seems to be like unity of purpose.
So, board members, do you want to decide that tonight?
I don't really feel comfortable deciding
Make-
that question without,
To
I
perhaps
mean,
at the next.
our president,
have
vice
to.
president, and clerk are all absent.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that will be a topic at a future board meeting in
Yeah.
terms of what do we want.
Absolutely.
Um,
Oh, just remind me to put that on the agenda.
yeah,
Okay, by then, okay, that's good.
all right.
Thank
So,
you.
right, so let's leave May 2nd at this point and see, you know, whether or not,
Falls
The timing's
falls into
good.
place.
yes, that's right. Alrighty, so, to wrap up, all of you maybe remember the pink form. Does everybody remember the pink form? It's in your booklet. And I have a responsibility to have all of you fill it out, and I need to print it and send it to CSBA. So it's a way that we can get some feedback about, and I probably shouldn't have mentioned it, but I do want to do a run around the room for just any kind of final comments about
Okay.
the workshop. And Tino, I think we'll start with you and go this way. So don't start writing right away until we've heard from the
I just appreciate the backwards mapping with the calendar.
calendar.
That
Okay.
really helpful to me.
Okay. Kirsten?
Same.
Okay.
Just what we liked most about it, or what?
Yeah, just comments about the section, overall section.
Actually, I think it's really, I just like that we're talking about what governance really means and what our roles are on it, so I appreciate that.
Great. Great.
I enjoyed the stories about everyone's little fork roads,
Very good.
history, things.
It is pretty cool. I also like hearing what, brought people to this point. I appreciate the way you leave the meeting. I appreciate the fact that you offer your wealth of knowledge, but without being condescending or, I mean, you really bring us all together as equals, and I really appreciate that.
Great. Thank
You're like Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Rogers.
I was gonna say Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Rogers.
That was the
You
Navy
just have that
show.
kind, soothing
I was thinking it was a
voice.
teacher.
No, Mr. Rogers, gosh, I can't remember if I said Robert. But you get it, right? So it's very comforting. Huh?
Missing the cardigan.
I used to have a cardigan sweater.
Well, we might have to get you
I
one.
have one, I don't.
Yeah, it's good.
Doreen?
For me, this has been, I enjoy this opportunity because again, there is no, the board, it feels very safe to be able to have these discussions. There's not a judgment, it's an open conversation in order for us as a district and governance team to get better, and that's the only intent in terms of the discussion. So for me, it's a healthy way to have conversations, and I haven't always had that, so this is very, very pleasant for me.
Yeah, it's comforting, you know, when you come for a board meeting, it's more intense and you're a little nervous and, this is so much more relaxed and then I think you learn more and you speak more,
That's right.
It's nice.
It is, yeah. It's more informal.
No, and I like how you divided us, you know what I mean? Cause I don't get to talk to Cloris that often and I feel like, I know more about her now and I get her and, you moved us around and we're a team.
Yeah.
It feels more like a team.
Great.
I was pretty much gonna say the exact same thing as a new person on in the district. I don't get to have transformative conversations, it's very interactional. And so, especially with our board members, it's the opportunity to sit here and talk with Vonda and kind of like see how we think about things was very helpful, and actually it made me feel a lot more relaxed, because you're right, at the board meetings especially, I am so nervous, and maybe I'm too transparent about that, but I think Scott will tell you, I like to talk sometimes, but not at the board meetings, I say as little as possible.
I make up for you.
Laura, what do you think?
My turn?
Yeah.
I thought I was the one who stressed out at board meetings. I know that I'm not the only one. I enjoyed tonight because I felt like there was a lot of understanding and openness amongst the team. And everyone kind of realized, had a better understanding of where somebody else was coming from. It was eye-opening.
Great. And Laura, thank you for all your support in getting all these things together.
You're welcome.
She's amazing.
Yes.
I have to interrupt real quick. The fact that you include Laura and Chris
I love that,
is amazing to me, and I really appreciate that.
because they're part of the team.
They're a huge part of the team that we could not deal without.
Chris?
As everyone was talking about their things that they liked, it kind of dawned on me that you've taken a concept that we see in the classroom, where you're pairing students together and you're having them collaborate together, and that whole, teaching and talking with your peer about what you just learned, and then sharing, modeling what you see in the classroom here at the board level, just goes to show the things that, I'm hearing about my kids doing in the school work, not just for kids, but for adults too. So.
Very nice.
Great. Very good. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to come to Yuba City and see all of you again and meet some of you for the first time. So we'll hopefully our paths will cross on May 2nd. Or another date to be determined.
Thank you.
If not, good luck.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, just adjourn.
Yeah, please fill out the form. Yeah.
Do we fill it out right now and leave it with
Yeah.
the governance?
Yeah, she's gonna
Meeting
adjourn.
is adjourned.